I stared at my brother Mark's text message, my hands trembling as I gripped my phone. "Sold your amateur paintings for $100 each. You're welcome." The coffee mug slipped from my other hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. Those paintings weren't amateur work. They were my secret collection authenticated pieces by the reclusive artist J.M. Hartley, each worth $2 million. Mark had just sold $12 million of art for $600. And the buyers, I knew exactly who they were. Mark's betrayal started 3 months ago when our father passed away. Dad left me the old family farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania, while Mark inherited the lucrative construction business. At the reading of the will, Mark's face had turned purple with rage. "She gets the house, that dump isn't worth anything," the lawyer explained. Dad's wishes were clear. I'd spent years caring for him during his illness while Mark rarely visited. The farmhouse meant everything to me. It wasn't just property. It held 32 years of memories. Every creaking floorboard reminded me of Dad teaching me to paint in the sunroom. Each faded wallpaper strip marked another Christmas we'd celebrated together. Mark saw dollar signs where I saw home. "This is ridiculous," Mark had shouted, slamming his fist on the lawyer's mahogany desk. "I built that construction business alongside Dad for 15 years. Julia just painted pictures and made soup. How is that equal?" The lawyer, Mr. Peterson, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses calmly. "Your father was very specific in his instructions. He valued Julia's dedication during his final years. The business is worth considerably more than the farmhouse, Mr. Walker." Mark's expression shifted then from anger to something more calculating. His wife Brittany, a bottle-blonde real estate agent who always wore too much perfume, whispered in his ear. I caught fragments, property values, and development potential. "Fine," Mark said finally, his voice artificially calm. "We'll see about this arrangement." 2 weeks after the funeral, Mark started his campaign. Phone calls at midnight demanding I reconsider. Surprise visits where he'd measure rooms and take photographs. He brought contractors to assess the property, without my permission, discussing renovation costs loud enough for me to hear. "Julia, be reasonable," he said during one visit, spreading blueprints across Dad's old dining table. "This place is falling apart. The foundation needs work, the roof leaks, and the heating system belongs in a museum. Sell it and we both win. You could buy a nice condo in the city." "This is my home," I replied firmly. "Dad wanted me to have it." His friendly mask slipped. Dad was sick. He wasn't thinking clearly. No court would uphold this joke of a will if I contested it. The threat hung between us like smoke. I knew Mark had resources I didn't. While he drove a $70,000 truck and lived in a house with 6 bedrooms, I scraped by teaching art classes at the community center. Fighting him legally would bankrupt me. 3 days later, I received formal notice. Mark was contesting the will, claiming undue influence and Dad's diminished capacity. The legal documents made my stomach churn. He wanted everything: the house, its contents, even Dad's old paintings. But during a phone conversation with Brittany present, Mark revealed the truth that changed everything. I overheard him talking to someone named Sal, his voice desperate. "I need $300,000 by next month. The business loans are in default. If I don't pay, we lose everything." The construction business, Dad's pride and legacy, was drowning in debt. Mark had been secretly mortgaging equipment, taking out loans against future projects that never materialized. He needed my farmhouse not out of greed, but out of desperation. He planned to sell it to developers for a quick million, solving his financial crisis, while leaving me homeless. "Just sign the papers, Julia," he said before leaving that night, his bravado replaced with barely concealed panic. "We can make this easy or hard. Your choice." I watched his taillights disappear down the gravel driveway, knowing this fight was far from over. Mark had inherited Dad's business acumen, but none of his integrity. Where Dad built with honor, Mark gambled with greed. The brother who once defended me from schoolyard bullies now threatened to destroy my life for profit. That night, I walked through the farmhouse, touching familiar surfaces, memorizing details. Whatever happened next, I wouldn't let Mark's financial mistakes cost me my father's final gift. This house held more than memories. It held secrets Dad had trusted only to me. While cleaning out Dad's attic, I discovered something extraordinary. Behind a false wall I'd never noticed before, 12 paintings lay wrapped in protective cloth, each one signed J.M. Hartley. My heart nearly stopped. Hartley was a legendary recluse whose works sold for millions at auction. These couldn't be real, could they? Dad's journal sat beside the paintings, covered in dust and bound with a leather strap. I opened it carefully, afraid the aged pages might crumble. His familiar handwriting filled page after page, but one entry from 1983 made me sink to the attic floor in shock. Today I saved a man's life. Found him half frozen in his overturned car during the blizzard. Brought him home and Mary nursed him back to health. Says his name is Hartley, that he's an artist. Odd fellow barely speaks, but his eyes see everything. He stayed 2 weeks painting constantly. When he left, he gave us 12 canvases. "For your kindness," he said. "Guard them well. They're not currency, they're trust." I researched frantically on my laptop, comparing the signatures, brushwork, and techniques to confirmed Hartley pieces. Every detail matched. The distinctive way he layered paint, the hidden symbols in each composition, even the specific pigments he mixed himself. These were authentic, each worth approximately $2 million, according to recent auction records. But there was more. Dad's journal contained a letter from Hartley written on yellowed paper. "Dear Samuel, your act of selfless kindness saved more than my body that winter night. I was driving toward the bridge, intending to end my artistic journey permanently. Your warmth, your wife's soup, your daughter's innocent laughter reminded me why beauty matters. These 12 paintings represent my rebirth. They must never feed greed, only nurture souls who understand that art transcends commerce. When you're gone, pass them to someone who sees hearts, not price tags. Your friend in perpetuity, J.M. Hartley." I sat surrounded by $24 million in art, understanding why Dad left me the farmhouse. He knew Mark would see only monetary value, but these paintings came with a moral obligation, a trust to honor Hartley's wishes. Each canvas told a story. Winter's Mercy obviously depicted that rescue night with swirls of white and blue surrounding a warm amber center. Child's Wonder captured a young girl, unmistakably me, at age 3, finger painting with pure joy. Love's Kitchen showed my mother cooking steam rising like prayers. The remaining 9 paintings explored themes of redemption, kindness, and human connection. Hartley had compressed a lifetime of gratitude into these works. No wonder he became reclusive afterward. How could commercial galleries understand art born from near death, transformed into celebration of life? I photographed each painting carefully, then researched authentication processes. The Hartley Foundation, run by his estate, could verify them, but that would create public records. News would spread instantly. Mark would know, Brittany would calculate commissions, and vultures would circle. Instead, I contacted Dr. Eleanor Vance, a Hartley expert who'd written the definitive biography. She agreed to examine them privately, arriving at the farmhouse discreetly. Her hands shook as she studied each canvas with specialized equipment. "These are the lost 12, she whispered reverently. The art world suspected they existed, but Hartley never confirmed it. He mentioned in one interview that his greatest works would never hang in museums, that they belonged to an angel who pulled him from white death. We assumed it was metaphorical. She explained that Hartley's public works, while valuable, lacked the emotional depth of these 12 pieces. These paintings contain his soul. See how the brushwork changes when depicting your family. That's not technique. That's love, transmuted into pigment." I showed her Hartley's letter, and tears rolled down her weathered cheeks. This explains everything. His later works tried recapturing this gratitude, but fell short. He left his heart here in your farmhouse. What should I do when I asked, overwhelmed by responsibility? Dr. Vance squeezed my hand. What would your father do? What would honor both his memory and Hartley's wishes? After she left, I rewrapped each painting carefully, but not before creating detailed documentation. If Mark discovered these treasures, he'd sell them instantly to solve his debt crisis. Hartley's gratitude would become currency. Dad's kindness reduced to dollars. I found the perfect hiding spot inside the old chimney in my bedroom unused, since we installed central heating. The paintings fit perfectly in the cleaned flue, protected by plastic and hidden by a false panel I constructed. That evening I understood my true inheritance. Not just property or paintings, but a test of character. Dad knew Mark's weaknesses and my strengths. He'd given Mark every opportunity to build honorably and watched him squander it through greed. Now I held treasures that could solve everyone's problems, but only by betraying everything Dad and Hartley valued. The weight of $24 million in hidden art pressed down like gravity. Tomorrow I'd face Mark again, knowing what lay concealed in my walls. The challenge wasn't keeping the secret. It was deciding what righteousness looked like when family loyalty collided with moral obligation. Mark's financial desperation intensified over the following weeks. What started as angry phone calls evolved into something darker. He showed up at the farmhouse at 7 one morning with a locksmith claiming he had rights to inventory everything inside as Dad's son. "You can't just break into my home," I protested, blocking the doorway while the locksmith uncomfortably shuffled his tools. "It's not breaking in if I have legal rights to the estate contents," Mark replied, waving official-looking documents. "My lawyer says until the will contest is settled, we're co-executors. I'm cataloging assets for the court." The locksmith, a young man named Tommy who'd gone to high school with us, looked apologetic. "Sorry, Julia, he said this was all legal. I don't want trouble." I recognized the manipulation, but fighting would only escalate things. "Fine, but I'm calling my lawyer and following you through every room." As they entered, my mind raced to the hidden paintings. The chimney panel appeared secure, but Mark had become unpredictable. While I pretended to phone a lawyer, I watched him systematically search Dad's office, the basement storage, even the kitchen pantry. "Looking for something specific?" I asked as he pried open Dad's old filing cabinet. "Just doing my due diligence," he muttered, photographing contents with his phone. "Brittany thinks Dad might have had Bond's gold coins, something valuable hidden away. Old farmers did that." Brittany arrived an hour later in her white Mercedes, wearing a business suit despite it being Saturday. She carried a tablet and measuring tape, moving through rooms like a predator, stalking prey. "The original hardwood alone is worth $50,000, she told Mark. "And these built-in cabinets are authentic craftsmen. Developers would pay premium prices." "The house isn't for sale," I stated firmly. She smiled with practiced sweetness. "Everything's for sale at the right price, honey. Mark and I found a developer willing to pay $1.2 million cash. They'll preserve the facade for historical tax credits while converting the interior to luxury condos." My stomach twisted. They'd already lined up buyers without any legal right to sell. Mark's desperation had morphed into delusion, believing he could force this transaction through sheer will. "You should see their plans." Brittany continued spreading architectural drawings on Dad's dining table. 8 units each, selling for $400,000. They'll call it Hartley Farms after the road. The irony of that name made me dizzy. If they only knew actual Hartleys hung hidden mere feet away. But something else caught my attention. Detailed measurements, soil reports, permit applications already filed. This wasn't preliminary. They'd been planning for months, maybe longer. "You started this before Dad died." I accused, the realization hitting hard. "You were planning to force him out too." Mark's face flushed. "Dad was sitting on a gold mine too stubborn to capitalize. This place could fund his medical care properly, instead of you playing nurse with community college training. I took care of him because I loved him, not for profit." "Love doesn't pay bills," Mark shot back. "You think your art classes and farmers market paintings support this place. The property taxes alone will bankrupt you within 2 years. Brittany interjected smoothly. "We're offering a solution where everyone wins. You get enough money to start fresh, Mark covers his business obligations, and the community gets beautiful housing. Fighting us helps nobody. I noticed how she said Mark covers his business obligations instead of saves the family business. The construction company's death spiral was apparently common knowledge in their household. How many other creditors were circling? After 3 hours of invasive searching, they left with notebooks full of photos and measurements. Mark's parting words chilled me. Next week, I'm bringing an estate appraiser and a structural engineer. Cooperate or I'll get a court order. That night, I installed security cameras using my meager savings. If Mark planned to escalate, I needed evidence. I also moved the paintings again, transferring them to waterproof cases hidden beneath insulation in the attic crawlspace. The chimney hiding spot felt too obvious now. My phone rang constantly with unknown numbers, creditors looking for Mark using any connection to reach him. One caller, particularly aggressive, threatened that family members can be held responsible for certain debts. I knew it wasn't legally true, but the intimidation was real. Then came the letter delivered by courier at midnight. Not from Mark's lawyer, but from Salvation Financial Services. They held notes on Mark's equipment loans co-signed using the construction company as collateral. If he defaulted, they'd seize everything, including any assets determined to be company property through family transfer or inheritance manipulation. The implications were clear. Mark had potentially committed fraud mixing personal and business assets. If investigators started digging, they might scrutinize every family transaction, including Dad's will. The paintings, if discovered during asset searches, could be claimed as part of the estate's total value. I called Mr. Peterson, Dad's lawyer, first thing in the morning. His voice was grave. "Julia, your brother's in serious trouble. I've been contacted by 3 different creditors and a federal investigator. There's talk of bankruptcy, fraud, possible criminal charges. You need to protect yourself." "How?" "Document everything. Every interaction, every threat, every visit. And if you have anything of value in that house, secure it legally. Create an inventory. Get appraisals, establish clear ownership, separate from any marital or business assets. Mark's sinking ship could drag down anyone close to him." After hanging up, I stared at the ceiling, knowing 12 priceless paintings rested above. Documenting them would create a paper trail. Not documenting them could be seen as concealment if discovered later. The ethical maze twisted tighter with each revelation about Mark's dealings. But one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just about sibling rivalry or inheritance disputes anymore. Mark's desperation had attracted dangerous attention, and the farmhouse stood at the center of a growing storm. Whatever happened next, I needed to be smarter, more careful, and absolutely certain about who I could trust. I'd converted the old barn into my art studio years ago, transforming the dusty space where Dad once stored farming equipment into a sanctuary of creativity. Natural light flooded through windows. I'd installed myself, illuminating canvases, where my students learned to see beauty in everyday things. Mark had always mocked my hobby, calling my paintings worthless daubing that embarrassed the family name. That Tuesday morning, I arrived at the studio to find the door splintered, hanging off its hinges like a broken wing. My heart sank as I stepped inside. Mark stood in the center of my carefully organized space, examining canvases with the cold calculation of an auctioneer. "Breaking and entering is a felony," I said, my voice steadier than my hands. He didn't even look up. "Not breaking in when I have legal interest in estate property. Brittany's guy says old barns like this are worth $80,000 to collectors who'll dismantle and rebuild them as wedding venues." My students' work lined the walls, each piece representing hours of effort and breakthrough moments. Mrs. Chen's first successful landscape, where she'd finally captured light on water. Timothy's portrait of his late grandfather painted through tears. Sarah's abstract expressing her recovery from addiction. To Mark, they were just canvas and paint. These are my students' paintings. They have nothing to do with Dad's estate. Everything on this property relates to the estate until legally determined otherwise. he replied, picking up one of my own pieces, a study of morning mist over the back field. Is this supposed to be art? Looks like fog and dirt. Brittany entered carrying a clipboard, her heels impractical for the barn's wooden floor. Oh, good, you're here. Saves us tracking you down. We need you to sign this inventory list confirming the studio contents. I scanned the document. They'd listed everything: easels, brushes, frames, even half-empty paint tubes, with estimated values beside each item. The total came to $12,000, laughably inflated, but legally problematic if entered into court records. I'm not signing anything without my lawyer present. Your funeral. Brittany shrugged, photographing my refusal. Default acknowledgement works too. By the way, some of these paintings show real amateur promise. Has anyone ever told you that you almost capture Hartley's use of light? Of course, you lack his genius for emotional depth. The blood drained from my face. Did she know something, or was it coincidence I forced myself to remain calm? Hartley's technique isn't that mysterious. He documented his methods extensively. Sure, but copying technique isn't the same as having talent, Mark interjected. Like Dad always said, those who can't do teach. At least your students provide some income, even if it's basically charity work. His casual cruelty stung because it echoed years of dismissive comments. Every family gathering where he'd introduced me as my sister who plays with paint. Every time he'd change the subject when someone asked about my art. Every success I'd achieved diminished to hobby status in his presence. Speaking of income, Brittany continued, we've arranged a fantastic opportunity. This weekend, we're hosting an estate sale to generate funds for property maintenance. Totally legal while the will's contested. We'll include some of these amateur pieces priced appropriately. Maybe $50 to $100 each. Some people collect folk art, ironically. You can't sell my work or my students without permission. Watch us, Mark said flatly. You want to keep bleeding money on lawyers? Or you could be smart, sign over your claim to the house, and walk away with enough to rent a nice apartment somewhere. Maybe even keep your little art hobby going. They'd clearly rehearsed this approach, alternating between threats and false reasonableness. But something in Mark's eyes looked different today. Beyond the anger and greed, I saw fear. Real bone-deep terror that whatever financial hole he'd dug was deepening faster than he could climb out. Mark. I tried one last time. If you're in trouble, we can find another solution. Dad wouldn't want this. His face contorted. Dad's dead. His opinions stopped mattering when his heart stopped beating. You gotta play devoted daughter while I built the business he spent 40 years creating. Now that business needs capital and you're sitting on it like some fairy tale princess in a tower. The business is failing because you gambled with client money. I shot back my patience, finally snapping. Don't blame me for your mistakes. The studio went silent except for wind rattling the windows. Mark stepped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. You have no idea who I owe or what they're capable of. This isn't about mistakes anymore. It's about survival. Mine, Brittany's, maybe even yours if you keep being stubborn. Is that a threat? It's reality. The people I owe don't accept excuses or payment plans. They want their money and they know I have a sister sitting on valuable property. How long before they decide to negotiate with you directly? Brittany touched his arm, warning him to stop talking. But the damage was done. He'd admitted involving himself with dangerous creditors, people who might target me to recover debts. The studio suddenly felt less like a sanctuary and more like a trap. They left after cataloging every item, promising the estate sale would proceed with or without my cooperation. I spent the next hour checking if anything was missing, relieved to find only minor items, gone a few brushes, some frames, nothing significant. But as I cleaned up their intrusion, I noticed something chilling. My painting of the farmhouse at sunset, one I'd never shown publicly, had been photographed from multiple angles. In the corner of one photo, barely visible, was a notation in Brittany's handwriting, check composition against known works, possible authentication needed. They suspected something. Whether through research or instinct, they'd connected dots between Dad the farmhouse and valuable art. The irony cut deep. They were hunting for treasures, while standing surrounded by my own work, which they dismissed as worthless. If they only knew that my amateur understanding of Hartley's technique came from studying 12 original masterpieces. That evening I moved the paintings again. The attic felt compromised now that Mark and Brittany were systematically searching. I wrapped each canvas in protective material and relocated them to the one place on the property. Mark would never think to look inside the old septic tank decommissioned when Dad installed the new system, but never removed. The concrete chamber, accessible through a hidden panel in the basement, provided perfect protection. As I secured the last painting, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your brother owes us $600,000. Property sales could cover it. Consider this friendly advice, cooperate with his plans." The studio invasion was just the beginning. Mark's desperation had broadcast our family conflict to dangerous people who saw opportunity in chaos. Whatever happened next, I needed to be prepared for visitors far less concerned with legal niceties than my brother. I spent that night installing better locks, motion sensors, and backup cameras around the studio. If they wanted to escalate, I'd document every move. Dad taught me that bullies relied on victims staying quiet. But he also taught me that sometimes the smartest response to a threat wasn't fighting back, but letting aggressors reveal their true nature to the world. The paintings waited safely in their concrete tomb while storm clouds gathered above. Soon I'd need to decide whether protecting Hartley's legacy was worth risking everything, including my life. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp Pennsylvania morning that usually filled me with joy. Instead, I woke to the sound of vehicles crunching up my gravel driveway. Through my bedroom window, I watched in horror as strangers unloaded tables, set up tents, and arranged items across my front lawn. A massive banner stretched between two oak trees. Estate sale, everything must go Art Antiques Collectibles. Cars already lined the road, early birds, eager for treasures. Mark stood in the center, directing traffic like a conductor orchestrating my humiliation. I threw on clothes and raced outside. "What are you doing? This is illegal." "Good morning to you too, sister," Mark replied cheerfully, playing to the gathering crowd. "Just helping liquidate some excess items. Estate maintenance requires funds, as Brittany explained." Brittany emerged from behind a table laden with my paintings, wearing a red blazer that screamed, "Successful Realtor." She held a megaphone which seemed excessive for a yard sale. "Welcome, everyone. We have original artwork, vintage items, and unique collectibles. Cash preferred, but we accept credit cards." My stomach lurched, seeing my paintings displayed like garage sale cast-offs. Not just my work, but pieces I'd been storing for students' frames I'd collected for future projects, even art supplies I'd bought with my own money. They'd raided the studio during the night, taking everything portable. "Those aren't estate items," I protested, grabbing for one of my canvases. Mark blocked me, his smile never wavering for the audience. "Documentation says otherwise. Besides, you should be grateful. We're pricing generously. Most of your paintings are marked at $100. That's probably more than they're worth." But Brittany insisted we show family loyalty. The crowd pressed closer, drawn by drama as much as bargains. I recognized several faces: Mrs. Patterson from the grocery store, Jim from the hardware store, neighbors who'd known our family for decades. My cheeks burned with embarrassment and rage. "Please," I tried reasoning quietly, "at least let me remove my students' work. They trusted me with those pieces." "Everything stays," Brittany announced through her megaphone. "First come, first served. Special deals for bulk purchases." I watched helplessly as people pawed through my life's work. Comments drifted over cute amateur stuff. "Might look nice in the bathroom. Think she copied this from somewhere." Each dismissal cut deeper than Mark's cruelty, because these were my neighbors, people I'd smiled at for years, reducing my passion to yard sale fodder. Then I noticed them 3 individuals who moved differently from bargain hunters. They examined paintings with systematic precision, photographing details, checking signatures, even measuring dimensions. Well-dressed, but deliberately unremarkable, they communicated through subtle glances and positioning. One woman, Asian features with expensive but understated clothing, lingered near my landscape series. She purchased 4 pieces without haggling, paying cash from a thick envelope. As she collected her paintings, our eyes met. Something passed between us, a recognition that transcended the carnival atmosphere. She approached under the pretense of asking about commissions. Beautiful work, very reminiscent of certain classical techniques. Do you study the masters? All artists learn from those who came before, I replied carefully. Indeed, some influences are more valuable than others. She pressed a business card into my hand discreetly. I collect pieces with interesting provenance. We should discuss your artistic journey, privately. The card read Detective Sarah Chen, Art Crimes Division. My blood turned to ice water. She'd written a number on the back different from the official one printed on front. Before I could respond, Brittany's voice boomed. Attention, special announcement. We have several paintings by the estate owner's daughter, Julia Walker. She studied various techniques, including some inspired by famous artists. Own a piece potentially influenced by greatness. The implication hung heavy. She was suggesting my work might have more value than appearance suggested, baiting specific buyers. I watched the other 2 suspicious individuals perk up at this announcement, moving toward my paintings with renewed interest. Mark appeared at my elbow, his breath hot with coffee and desperation. Surprising who shows up at these things. That Asian lady bought 4 of your pieces. Cash only, no questions. Makes you wonder what she knows that we don't. She appreciates art, I said flatly. Or she appreciates something else. Brittany's been researching, you know. Funny how much your technique resembles certain valuable styles, almost like you had special access to study materials. The threat was subtle but clear. They suspected I had something valuable, something connected to artistic techniques worth studying. If they'd done enough research to attract Detective Chen's attention, who else might be watching? I scanned the crowd with new awareness. There a man in a baseball cap who held paintings to the light at specific angles. Over there, a woman who spent more time observing other buyers than examining items. The yard sale had become a hunting ground, but I wasn't sure who was hunting whom. "Excuse me," a soft voice interrupted. Mrs. Chen, my elderly student, stood holding her landscape painting, the one she'd worked on for months. Tears gathered in her eyes. "Why is my painting for sale? This shows my childhood home in China before it was demolished. It's all I have left." My heart shattered. "I'm so sorry. This is a mistake. That's absolutely yours." I reached for the painting, but Brittany intercepted. "Actually, anything created in the studio using studio materials technically belongs to the estate. However, we could arrange a special price for sentimental value. Say $200. "That's extortion!" I snarled, my control finally snapping. "Give her the painting, now!" "Or what?" Brittany challenged, crowd gathering to watch. "You'll call the police, please do. I have documentation showing estate ownership of all studio contents. Let's see who they believe." Detective Chen materialized beside Mrs. Chen, her presence commanding despite civilian clothes. "I'll purchase this painting for the lady. 200, was it?" She counted out bills slowly, each movement deliberate. Interesting business model selling artwork with questionable ownership. I'm sure proper documentation exists for all sales today. Brittany's confidence wavered. "Of course, everything's legal and above board." "Excellent. Then you won't mind providing receipts with detailed provenance for each piece sold. For tax purposes, naturally. The IRS takes particular interest in estate sales exceeding certain thresholds." Mark pulled Brittany aside for hushed conversation. Their body language screamed panic. They'd walked into something bigger than anticipated, attracting attention from authorities already investigating their activities. Meanwhile, Detective Chen handed Mrs. Chen her painting, refusing the elderly woman's attempts to repay her. "Consider it a gift between art lovers," she said, then looked at me meaningfully. "Some things are too precious for price tags." The yard sale continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. The mysterious buyers purchased strategic pieces and vanished. Regular customers sensed the tension, completing transactions quickly before leaving. By noon, half my work had sold to unknown hands for pitiful prices. As crowds thinned, a black Mercedes pulled up. A silver-haired man emerged, moving with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting their way. He surveyed the scene with Arctic blue eyes, his expression unreadable. Mr. Kozlov. Brittany rushed over, her earlier bravado replaced with nervous energy. "We weren't expecting you today." Kozlov. The name hit me like ice water. I'd heard whispers about him, a collector who acquired art through methods that skated legal boundaries. If he was involved with Mark's debts, the danger had escalated exponentially. I heard about a sale featuring interesting artwork. Kozlov said, his accent subtle but present. Your communication suggested items of substantial value might be available. Mark materialized, sweat beading his forehead despite the cool air. "Mr. Kozlov, sir, we're liquidating various assets. Perhaps something specific interests you." "Perhaps." His gaze found me, and I felt evaluated like a painting myself. "You must be the artist. Your brother speaks of hidden family treasures. Tell me, what treasures does an art teacher possess that could interest serious collectors?" Every instinct screamed danger. This man radiated the kind of power that came from never hearing the word no. But I forced myself to meet his eyes steadily. Just the treasures of creativity and honest work, nothing that would interest someone of your sophisticated tastes. He smiled, but it never reached his eyes. Honest work? How refreshing. Though I find family secrets often prove more valuable than anyone expects. Your brother certainly hopes so. The implied threat chilled deeper than autumn air. Mark owed this man money, serious money, and he'd pointed Kozlov toward me as a potential source of repayment. The yard sale wasn't just about liquidating assets. It was about advertising that the Walker family had something worth taking. Detective Chen watched from her car cell phone pressed to her ear. The other mysterious buyers had vanished, but I sensed they remained close, waiting to see how this played out. My simple life-teaching art had become a chess game with dangerous players, and I didn't even know all the rules. As Kozlov examined the remaining paintings with clinical detachment, I realized the true disaster of this yard sale. It wasn't the loss of my artwork or the public humiliation. It was the signal sent to predators that something valuable existed here. Something worth the attention of art crime investigators and international collectors alike. The paintings hidden in the septic tank seemed to pulse with radioactive danger. How long before someone connected enough dots to guess at their existence? How long before Mark's desperation led him to more dramatic measures? "Interesting technique," Kozlov murmured, studying one of my landscapes. "Almost familiar, yet not quite. Tell me, Miss Walker, where did you study?" "Community college and life experience," I answered truthfully. "Life experience." He savored the words. "Yes, I believe you've experienced more than you reveal. We should talk again soon after your brother and I conclude our business." He left without purchasing anything, which somehow felt worse than if he'd bought every piece. His presence lingered like smoke, a promise that this was far from over. As Mark and Brittany packed up the remaining items, Detective Chen approached me. "Interesting company your brother keeps. We need to talk privately and soon. Things are moving faster than anticipated." She drove away, leaving me standing in my emptied yard surrounded by folding tables and broken trust. The yard sale had achieved exactly what Mark intended, putting me on the radar of dangerous people while raising funds for his debts. But it had also done something he hadn't anticipated. It had started a countdown clock, and I wasn't sure any of us would like what happened when it reached 0. Detective Chen arrived at my kitchen door at 10 that night, dressed in dark civilian clothes that made her blend into shadows. She'd parked behind the barn, approaching through the back field like someone who understood the value of discretion. When I let her in, her first action was to check windows and draw curtains. "Your brother has gotten himself, and now you, into serious trouble." She began without preamble, accepting the coffee I offered. How much do you know about Viktor Kozlov? Just rumors, art collector with questionable methods. That's like calling a hurricane weather with wind. Kozlov runs the East Coast's most sophisticated art theft and forgery network. He acquires pieces through intimidation, blackmail, occasionally worse. Your brother owes him $600,000 from a construction project that went sideways, a project that was probably money laundering from the start. My hands trembled around my mug. Mark's desperate, but he wouldn't knowingly work with criminals. Detective Chen's expression suggested otherwise. Your brother's been taking shortcuts for years. Small stuff, initially inflated invoices, skimmed materials tax evasion. But debt makes people reckless. When traditional lenders cut him off, he went to alternative sources. Kozlov seemed like a legitimate private investor until the interest rates kicked in. She pulled out a tablet showing surveillance photos. Mark meeting men in parking garages, exchanging envelopes with people whose faces screamed danger, entering buildings known for illegal activities. My brother, who'd taught me to ride a bike and scared away middle school bullies, had become someone I didn't recognize. We've been building a case against Kozlov for 3 years, she continued. He's careful using legitimate businesses as fronts, keeping his hands technically clean. But your brother's situation created an opportunity. Desperate people make mistakes, and mistakes create evidence. You're using Mark as bait. He put himself in this position. We're trying to protect innocent people from the crossfire, including you. But Julia, I need complete honesty. The buyers at that yard sale weren't random. They were Kozlov's scouts evaluating whether your family has something worth his attention. What are they looking for? The question hung between us like a blade. Detective Chen had been kind, professional, even protective. But she was still law enforcement, and the 12 paintings hidden below us existed in legal gray area. Dad had received them legitimately, but their value created complications. Tax implications, insurance requirements, authentication procedures that would generate publicity. I teach art, I said carefully. My work apparently resembles valuable styles. Maybe they think I have access to something more significant. Her dark eyes studied me with intelligence that missed nothing. Your technique does show unusual sophistication, almost like you've had exceptional teachers or models to study, the kind of access that would require connections or resources. We danced around the truth, neither willing to show all our cards. But Detective Chen shifted tactics, pulling out another photo. This one showed my farmhouse from an aerial view with heat signatures indicating people positioned around the property. This was taken 3 nights ago. Kozlov's men have been surveilling your property in shifts. They're not just watching, they're searching for something specific. My question is, do they know what they're looking for, or are they fishing based on your brother's desperate promises? Mark knows I don't have money. The farmhouse is all I own. Money isn't always currency. Sometimes it's information access or objects with special value. Your father was respected in the community, knew many people over the years. Perhaps he left something your brother mentioned in desperation. Documents, connections, even rumors would be enough to spark Kozlov's interest. I thought about Dad's journal, the story of saving Hartley. Had Mark found references to it? Did he understand the significance? My father was a private man. If he had secrets, he didn't share them with Mark. But he might have shared them with you. It wasn't a question. Detective Chen leaned forward. I'm going to be direct. We have intelligence suggesting Kozlov believes your family possesses artwork connected to J.M. Hartley, specifically pieces from his lost year when he disappeared from public view. Ring any bells? My poker face must have cracked because she nodded slowly. I thought so. Julia, I'm not here to create problems for you. Art obtained legitimately belongs to its rightful owner regardless of current value. But if Kozlov believes you have such pieces, you're in extreme danger. He's killed for less valuable prizes. Hypothetically, I said slowly, if someone possessed such artwork, what would you recommend? Hypothetically secure documentation of legitimate ownership. Move the items to a safe location, possibly a bank vault or bonded storage. Work with authorities to ensure protection while maintaining ownership rights. And absolutely do not let Kozlov or his associates confirm their existence. She stood preparing to leave. I'll have unmarked cars patrol regularly, but we can't provide constant protection without cause. Be careful, Julia. Your brothers lit a fuse and we're all trying to prevent the explosion. If you remember anything that might help, call me immediately, day or night. At the door, she paused. One more thing. Those buyers today. 2 were Kozlov's people, but the third was FBI art crime. This has attracted federal attention. Whatever you're not telling me, make sure it can withstand that level of scrutiny. After she left, I sat in darkness processing the implications. Federal investigation meant everything would be exposed eventually. The paintings couldn't stay hidden forever, but revealing them now would paint a target on my back in blood. I went to the basement, checking the concealed panel. The paintings remained secure, but they felt like ticking bombs. Hartley's gift of gratitude had become a curse of greed, drawing circles of danger ever tighter around my life. My phone buzzed. Mark, need to talk, urgent. Meet me at the old mill tomorrow sunrise. Come alone. Please, Julia, I'm scared. The old mill was where we'd played as children, building forts and pretending to be pirates. Now it might become where adult games turn deadly. I texted back, I'll be there. Sleep proved impossible. I spent the night researching Kozlov, each article more frightening than the last. Stolen masterpieces, missing collectors, a fortune built on others' cultural heritage. He didn't just want art. He consumed it, hoarding beauty like a dragon with treasure. Detective Chen had confirmed my worst fears. This wasn't about Mark's debts anymore. Kozlov smelled bigger prey, and he wouldn't stop until he claimed it or destroyed anyone in his path. The investigation had revealed the true stakes: survival itself. As dawn approached, I prepared for the meeting with Mark. But first, I took precautions. I photographed each painting again, uploading encrypted files to cloud storage. I drafted a letter to Dr. Eleanor Vance explaining everything to be sent if something happened to me. And I moved 2 paintings to a new location, the old storm cellar on the abandoned Peterson property insurance, against whatever came next. The net was closing from all sides. Kozlov hunting treasure, FBI investigating crimes, Mark desperate for salvation, and me standing in the center, guarding secrets that could save or damn us all. Detective Chen was right about one thing: the fuse was lit. The question was whether I could control the explosion or merely hope to survive it. The old mill stood skeletal against the sunrise, its weathered boards groaning with memories and rot. Mark waited inside a shadow among shadows. When he turned, I gasped. His face bore bruises in various stages of healing, purple-black beneath one eye, a split lip still swollen. The confident brother who'd orchestrated yesterday's yard sale had vanished, replaced by someone haunted. "They did this after the sale," he said without greeting. Said I wasted their time with amateur paintings and kitchen junk. Said I had 1 week to produce something real, or... He couldn't finish. Or what Mark... They showed me pictures. Other people who disappointed Kozlov. One man's hands were... Julia. I can't go to the police. They have people everywhere. Even in witness protection, they found a guy who testified against them. Despite everything, seeing my brother broken stirred protective instincts. Detective Chen could help. The FBI is involved now. His laugh was bitter. Chen, she approached me months ago, wanted me to wear a wire, gather evidence. I refused because I thought I could handle it myself. Now it's too late. Kozlov knows about the investigation. He has sources. Is that why you've been pushing so hard about the farmhouse? Mark slumped against a wooden beam. Initially, yes. I thought selling it would cover my debts. But then Brittany found something. Dad's old insurance records listing artworks with a combined value notation. No details, just a number that seemed impossible. She researched, made connections, realized Dad might have known Hartley during his lost year. My heart hammered, but I kept my expression neutral. Dad knew lots of people. Stop lying. Mark's shout echoed through empty space. I know they exist. The Hartley paintings. Dad told me on his deathbed made me promise to let you decide their fate because he didn't trust me. Joke's on him, right? His distrust might get me killed. The confession hung between us like a physical presence. All this time, Mark had known. His search hadn't been random desperation, but targeted hunting. If Dad told you, then you know why he made that choice. Because I'm the greedy son who'd sell them immediately. Mark's voice cracked. He was right. I would have. But Julia, that was before I understood the real price. Kozlov doesn't just want the paintings, he wants to own them in ways that destroy their meaning. He told me about his private gallery masterpieces hidden from the world beauty hoarded like weapons. So don't give them to him. You think I have a choice. Those buyers yesterday weren't just evaluating your amateur work. 2 were Kozlov's art experts. They confirmed our family had access to Hartley's techniques, that someone studied his actual paintings. The 3rd buyer, she purchased specific pieces that showed technique similarities. They're building a case that we have the originals. I remembered Detective Chen's warning about FBI involvement. The 3rd buyer was law enforcement, wasn't she? Mark nodded miserably. Agent Sarah Kim. She's been tracking Kozlov's network, noticed his sudden interest in our family. Now the FBI's watching us too, waiting to see what surfaces. We're trapped between criminals and cops, and both sides want the same thing. What do you want me to do, Mark? He moved closer, desperation radiating like fever. Give me one painting, just one. I'll tell Kozlov it's all we have, that Dad sold the others years ago. He'll accept partial payment, buy me time to figure out the rest. One painting to save my life. And when he realizes there are more, when he discovers you lied, I'll be gone. Brittany and I will disappear, start over somewhere. Please, Julia, I know I've been terrible, but I'm your brother. Would you really let them kill me over paint and canvas? The manipulation was obvious but effective. Under the greed and betrayal, I heard the terrified little boy who'd once crawled into my bed during thunderstorms. But I also remembered Hartley's letter, his trust that these paintings would never feed greed. I can't, I whispered. They're not mine to give. Mark's face transformed fear replaced by rage. Not yours. You're sitting on $24 million while I face torture and death, and you're worried about ownership philosophy. It's not about ownership. It's about honoring trust. Dad saved Hartley's life, and those paintings represent gratitude that can't be sold. Would you want someone to auction off your children's drawings? Your wedding rings? Some things have value beyond money. Pretty words won't stop Kozlov from breaking my bones one by one. Then run. Take Brittany and disappear now. I'll help with money for travel new identities. With what money you're teaching salary? Mark laughed bitterly. You don't understand. Kozlov has resources we can't imagine. He owns judges, customs officials, entire police departments in some countries. Running means dying tired. My phone vibrated. Detective Chen, urgent. Kozlov's men are mobilizing. Whatever your brother promised them, they're coming to collect. Get somewhere safe. We need to go, I told Mark, now. But he grabbed my arm, his grip painful. Not until you agree to help. One painting, Julia. Choose my life or your principles. Let go, Mark. You're hurting me. Hurt you don't know hurt, but you will when Kozlov realizes you have what he wants. He'll start with fingers asking about each painting's location. Then he'll get creative. I've seen the photos of his interrogation methods. A car engine echoed outside. We both froze, recognizing the sound of expensive German engineering approaching the isolated mill. Mark's face went white. They followed me. Oh God, they followed me. Back exit, I hissed, pulling him toward the mill's rear door. But silhouettes already blocked that route. 3 men entered with the casual confidence of predators who'd cornered prey. The leader, tall with dead eyes, smiled at our trapped expressions. Mr. Walker, Ms. Walker, Mr. Kozlov requests the pleasure of your company. He believes it's time for honest conversation about family treasures. Mark tried bravado. I told you I'm working on getting them. My sister's being difficult. The tall man backhanded Mark, casually sending him sprawling. Mr. Kozlov dislikes excuses. He prefers results. Your sister will provide them or will explore alternative motivations. They had guns, though none were drawn. The threat lived in their posture, their certainty that violence was just another tool. I helped Mark stand tasting copper fear. I don't know what you think we have, I said steadily, but you're mistaken. We're a farm family with debts and old furniture. Nothing worth this drama. The tall man studied me with reptilian patience. Lies Ms. Walker. Your family possesses 12 paintings by J.M. Hartley from his lost year. Your father received them in 1983. They're worth approximately $2 million each at auction, though Mr. Kozlov values them differently. He appreciates their rarity. My blood turned to ice. They knew everything, the exact number, the date, even the value. Someone had talked, but who Mark looked as shocked as I felt, suggesting his desperate promises had been general, not specific. Surprising information, yes, the man continued. Mr. Kozlov employs excellent researchers. Old insurance documents, estate planning papers filed decades ago, even testimonies from people who knew your father. Secrets rarely stay buried forever. They herded us toward their vehicle, a black SUV with tinted windows. I memorized the license plate, though doubted it would matter. As we approached, another car screeched into the mill's lot. Detective Chen emerged with her weapon drawn, followed by 2 other officers. Federal agents, nobody move. The moment froze, then exploded. Kozlov's men reached for weapons while Mark and I dropped instinctively. Gunfire erupted, sharp cracks echoing across morning air. I crawled toward the mill's foundation, dragging Mark with me as bullets sparked off metal and wood. The firefight lasted seconds but felt like hours. When silence fell, one of Kozlov's men lay still while the other 2 were face down in dirt, Chen's team securing them with zip ties. The tall man bled from a shoulder wound but remained conscious, his dead eyes now showing pain. You okay? Chen asked, helping us stand. Her vest showed impact marks where bullets had struck. How did you know? I gasped. We've been tracking their vehicles since yesterday. When they mobilized this morning, we followed. Good thing, too. Kozlov's getting desperate enough for daylight kidnapping. Mark hadn't spoken since the shooting started. He stared at the blood, the weapons, the reality of what his debts had unleashed. This is really happening, he whispered. People are dying over paintings. Chen's expression held no sympathy. People die over far less, Mr. Walker. Your greed opened this door. Now we all have to deal with what walked through. Ambulances arrived, followed by more federal vehicles. The mill became a crime scene yellow tape, marking where our childhood playground had become a battleground. They took Mark for questioning and protection while Chen drove me to a safe house. This escalates everything, she explained en route. Kozlov will claim his men acted independently, but we've got them on attempted kidnapping assault with deadly weapons conspiracy. He'll need those paintings more than ever now to fund his legal defense. You're not safe anywhere he can reach. The safe house was a modest apartment in a complex filled with commuter families. Normal life happening behind thin walls while I hid from international art criminals. Chen stationed agents outside and gave me a panic button. The real buyers, I said as she prepared to leave. You mentioned 3 at the yard sale. 2 were Kozlov's, but the third... Agent Kim, yes. She's been undercover in Kozlov's organization for 6 months. Those paintings she bought from you, they're evidence now showing technique consistencies that support our theory about the Hartleys. Julia, it's time to tell us where they are. We can protect them and you, but only if you trust us. Ifi. Trust. Such a simple word for such a complex choice. Trust the FBI with Dad's legacy. Trust that Hartley's wishes would be honored by bureaucracy. Trust that protection meant safety rather than different danger. I need time to think, I said. Chen nodded, though disappointment flickered across her features. Time's running short. Kozlov won't accept this setback quietly. He has lawyers, connections, resources we're still discovering. Today was a victory, but the war's just beginning. And Julia wars have casualties. Make sure you're not one of them. After she left, I sat in the generic apartment processing the morning's violence. The investigation had revealed more than criminal networks and federal interest. It had shown how quickly ordinary life could shatter when greed met desperation. Somewhere 12 paintings waited in their concrete tomb. Hartley's gratitude transformed into currency of death. Dad's kindness twisted into criminal commodity, and me caught between preserving beauty and preserving life. The buyers had revealed themselves criminals, federal agents, and my own brother, all circling the same prize, all willing to destroy to possess. The question was no longer whether the paintings would surface, but who would claim them when they did, and whether anyone would survive the claiming. 3 days in the safe house felt like 3 years. I'd memorized every water stain on the ceiling, every car pattern in the parking lot, every footstep in the hallway. When someone knocked using the specific pattern Chen had taught me, I expected another agent with groceries or updates. Instead, Brittany stood in my doorway clutching a designer bag and wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy day. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me before I could object. "They released Mark this morning. He's at our house drinking himself stupid and crying about betraying you." "How did you find me?" She laughed a sound like breaking glass. "Please, I'm a realtor. I know every property transaction in 3 counties, including which shell companies the FBI uses for safe houses. Your detective Chen isn't as clever as she thinks." The casualness of that revelation chilled me. If Brittany could find me, who else could I check the window confirming the federal agents remained at their posts, unaware of this breach? "What do you want, Brittany?" She removed her sunglasses, revealing exhaustion beneath perfect makeup. "To offer you a deal. The real deal, not Mark's desperate fumbling. You see, Julia, your brother's an idiot, but he's my idiot. I've invested 5 years in this relationship, molding him, positioning us for success. I won't let it all crumble over his gambling debts and your misplaced loyalty to a dead man's wishes. If you're here to beg for a painting..." "Beg?" She looked genuinely offended. "I don't beg, I negotiate, and I have information you need." She pulled out her phone, showing me photographs that made my stomach drop. The farmhouse from angles I didn't recognize, zoom lens shots, through windows, infrared images, showing heat signatures. Someone had been watching extensively professionally recently. "Kozlov's men aren't the only ones interested in your property. These were taken by a private investigator hired by Salvation Financial Services. They're preparing to seize the farmhouse as collateral for Mark's debts, claiming fraudulent transfer of family assets. Your father's will won't protect you once their lawyers start digging." The house was Dad's to give. Was it Mark's name appears on several improvement permits over the years. He invested company money into renovations, mixing personal and business assets. Legally messy, exactly what aggressive creditors exploit. But I can make it go away. I studied her, seeing past the real estate shark persona for the first time. Brittany wasn't just protecting Mark, she was protecting her own interests. "What's your price?" "1 painting, but not for Kozlov. For us. Mark and I disappear with it, start fresh somewhere without extradition treaties. We sell it privately, live quietly, never bother you again. In exchange, I give you every document proving sole ownership of the farmhouse, plus information about who's really pulling strings. You're assuming I have paintings to trade." Her smile turned predatory. "Stop playing dumb, Julia. I've done my homework. Your father saved Hartley during the blizzard of '83. Hartley spent 2 weeks at your farmhouse recovering. He was famous for paying debts with artwork. The math isn't complicated." She opened her bag, pulling out a thick folder. "Copies of your father's insurance policies, listing 12 artworks with special riders. Bank records showing he paid for expensive climate-controlled storage units for exactly 2 weeks in 1984 before canceling them. a receipt for professional art conservation supplies dated the same year. Should I continue? The evidence was circumstantial but damning in aggregate. Brittany had assembled a careful case, the kind prosecutors use to establish patterns. Impressive research. I'm thorough. It's why I'm successful while Mark flounders. But here's information you don't have. She leaned forward, voice dropping. Kozlov isn't working alone. He has a partner, someone with access to museum databases, authentication records, even FBI files, someone who knew exactly which paintings Hartley created during his lost year. Who? Dr. Eleanor Vance. The name hit like a physical blow. The Hartley expert who'd authenticated the paintings privately, who'd cried over their beauty, who'd urged me to honor both Dad's and Hartley's wishes. You're lying. Am I who else knew about the painting's existence, who had access to compare them against museum pieces, who could provide Kozlov with exact details about what to hunt? Vance has been feeding him information for years, helping target private collections. She authenticates publicly while marking treasures for theft privately. My mind raced, reviewing every interaction with Dr. Vance, her immediate willingness to come privately, her emotional response that had seemed so genuine, her specific knowledge about the Lost 12 that even other experts only speculated about. Brittany produced more photos. Vance meeting with well-dressed men in hotel lobbies. Vance entering buildings owned by Kozlov's shell companies. Vance's bank records showing large deposits after mysterious private consultations. She played you perfectly, Brittany continued. The respected expert moved to tears by artistic beauty, encouraging you to protect the paintings while knowing Kozlov would eventually claim them. She probably photographed every detail during her visit, creating a shopping list for international criminals. Rage and betrayal warred in my chest. If true, Dr. Vance had violated everything she claimed to represent. Trust, scholarship, preservation of cultural heritage, all lies covering greed. Even if you're right, that doesn't mean I'll trade with you. Really, let me paint you a picture of your future without my help. Brittany's voice turned clinical. Kozlov regroups, posts bail for his men, launches legal attacks while planning illegal ones. The farmhouse gets seized by creditors. The FBI presses harder, maybe charges you with obstruction for hiding the paintings. Meanwhile, Vance provides Kozlov with every detail about the artworks, making them impossible to move or sell legitimately. You end up with nothing, no home, no paintings, no life. Or you trade one painting for freedom. I handle the creditors, provide evidence about Vance to the FBI, help you secure the remaining 11 paintings properly. You keep your home, protect most of Hartley's legacy, and gain powerful allies. Mark and I vanish forever. Everyone wins except Kozlov and his corrupt expert. She made it sound reasonable, even noble, but I heard the calculation beneath her words. Brittany would sacrifice anyone for profit, including the husband she claimed to protect. You'd sell out Dr. Vance in a heartbeat. She chose to betray everything she stood for. Consequences follow choices. Like Mark chose to gamble with dangerous people. Her expression hardened. Mark's weak, always has been. But he's my weakness, and I protect what's mine. Help me save him from himself, and I'll help you save what matters to you. I need proof about Vance. Real evidence, not photographs that could mean anything. Brittany smiled like a chess player moving toward checkmate. She pulled out a small recorder. From her meeting with Kozlov's lieutenant yesterday. Listen. Dr. Vance's cultured voice filled the room. The paintings are extraordinary, worth far more than market value to certain collectors. The girl trusts me. Give me another week and I'll have their exact location. A man's voice responded, Mr. Kozlov grows impatient. Perhaps direct action would be faster. And risk damaging them. Numbered Julia will reveal their location voluntarily once she believes she's protecting them. I'll suggest moving them to a secure facility that you control. Patient corruption yields better results than crude force. I stopped the recording, nausea rolling through me. Every word dripped with betrayal. The woman I'd trusted with authentication had been marking the paintings for theft from the moment she saw them. Convinced, Brittany asked, "How did you get this?" "I've been recording everyone involved in this mess for months. Insurance, you understand. Mark's not the only one who makes stupid choices when desperate, but I prepare for contingencies, including recording me right now." She shrugged, unashamed. "Probably. Trust but verify, as they say. So do we have a deal?" I thought about the paintings hidden beneath concrete and dirt. 12 masterpieces representing gratitude, kindness, and the transformative power of human connection. Could I trade one to save the others? Would Hartley understand choosing pragmatism over idealism? I need time. "Time's up, Julia. Kozlov posts bail tomorrow. Vance is meeting with authentication boards to establish provenance for when the paintings surface. The creditors file seizure papers by week's end. Choose now or lose everything by default." The pressure felt physical, crushing possibilities into binary choices. But something in Brittany's eagerness warned me. She'd revealed too much, pushed too hard. Desperate people make mistakes, and desperation radiated from her designer clothes. "Why are you really here, Brittany? What aren't you telling me?" Her mask slipped for just a moment. Fear flickered across her features before vanishing behind practiced confidence. "I told you. Protecting my investment in Mark." "No, there's more. You're scared of something specific." She stood abruptly, gathering her materials. "Think about my offer. You have 24 hours before I explore other options. And Julia, check your father's workshop. Sometimes the best hiding places are the most obvious ones." The cryptic comment hung in the air after she left. I watched through the window as she walked to her Mercedes, noting how she checked her surroundings constantly, how her hands shook slightly as she unlocked the door. Brittany was running from something or someone. Her betrayal went deeper than selling information or trading paintings. She'd put herself in the crossfire between criminals and law enforcement, playing every angle until angles became nooses. I called Detective Chen, immediately reporting the visit. Her response was terse. "We're compromised. Pack nothing. Someone's coming for you in 10 minutes. Gray sedan, Agent Martinez driving. Get in quickly." 10 minutes later, I was speeding toward a new location, watching the city blur past. Brittany's betrayal had exposed more than Dr. Vance's corruption. It had revealed how deeply the rot spread, how many people would sacrifice integrity for profit. But her final words echoed. Dad's workshop, where he'd built furniture and fixed engines, and taught me that honest work meant more than easy money. What had he hidden in plain sight? The paintings waited in their concrete tomb, while conspiracies circled above. Everyone wanted them criminals for profit, investigators for evidence, experts for fame, family for salvation. But what did the paintings want? Maybe that was the question I should have been asking all along. Not what people could take from art, but what art demanded from people. Hartley had painted gratitude. Dad had preserved trust. Now I had to decide what brushstroke I'd add to their canvas of choices. The gray sedan turned into an industrial district, anonymous buildings hiding anonymous lives. Somewhere behind us, Brittany played her dangerous games. Dr. Vance wove her webs of expertise and betrayal. Kozlov counted money and bodies with equal dispassion. Mark drowned in whiskey and regret. And I carried the weight of 12 paintings that refused to be mere property, demanding instead to be testimonies of human grace in a graceless world. The industrial safe house felt like a tomb, all concrete walls and fluorescent lights that hummed with electric anxiety. I'd been there 12 hours when my phone rang at 3 a.m. Mark's number, but the voice that spoke wasn't his. "Julia." The word came out broken wet with tears and terror. "They have me. Oh God, they have me." "Mark, where are you?" "I don't know. They came to the house. Brittany. She set me up. Told them I'd be alone. Said she was getting the painting from you, but she just vanished. They want the paintings, Julia. All 12. They know everything." A different voice took the phone, cultured and cold. Kozlov himself. "Ms. Walker, Your brother's situation is unfortunate but solvable. You have something I desire. I have someone you presumably wish to keep breathing. Simple mathematics. If you hurt him. Threats. How pedestrian. I don't need to hurt him yet. Your brother's quite forthcoming about family secrets when properly motivated. Did you know he once stole money from your mother's purse to buy baseball cards? Touching these little confessions, though I'm more interested in where you've hidden Hartley's masterpieces. Mark's scream erupted through the phone, sharp and primal. My knees buckled, sending me to the cold floor. Stop! Please stop! That was just his finger bent backward. Still functional, merely painful. Each hour you delay costs him more permanent damage. Shall we start with hands? He mentioned playing guitar in college. Shame to lose that ability. I'll get them, I gasped. The paintings. Just don't hurt him anymore. Excellent. You have until dawn, approximately 3 hours. Come alone to the Riverside Industrial Complex, Building 7. Bring all 12 paintings. Any deviation, any police presence, and your brother discovers how creative I can be with common tools. The line went dead. I sat on the floor phone, clutched in numb hands. They had Mark. Brittany had vanished, probably already on a plane somewhere with whatever she'd stolen. And I had 3 hours to excavate 12 priceless paintings from their hiding spot and deliver them to a man who collected beauty through brutality. I called Chen, knowing she'd try to stop me. They have Mark. Kozlov wants the paintings by dawn, or... We'll set up a rescue operation. Don't do anything rash. With what, half your team is compromised by Vance's information leaks. The other half won't risk an operation without authorization, which takes time Mark doesn't have. I'm going. Julia, this is exactly what Kozlov wants. You deliver those paintings and he kills both of you anyway. Witnesses are liabilities. Maybe, but not delivering them definitely gets Mark killed. I won't have my brother's death on my conscience. Then let us help. Wear a wire. We'll track you. Move in when Kozlov's checking the paintings for authenticity, when his men have guns on us, your heroic rescue would be a bloodbath. I stood, decision crystallizing. I'm done letting others control the situation. The paintings started as gifts of gratitude. Maybe they should end the same way. What does that mean? It means I'm going to honor what Hartley wanted, what Dad preserved, even if it costs everything. No more games, no more angles, just truth-facing greed. I hung up before she could argue further. 3 hours. Barely enough time to retrieve the paintings, definitely not enough to plan anything clever. But maybe clever had been the problem all along. Everyone scheming, nobody simply doing what was right. The farmhouse sat in darkness when I arrived. Crime scene tape fluttered like yellow ghosts marking where violence had touched my home. I grabbed Dad's old sledgehammer and work lights, descending to the basement where the septic access panel waited. Physical labor felt almost meditative after weeks of mental chess. Swing, impact, concrete chunks falling away. Swing, impact, the hidden chamber revealing itself. By the time I'd opened enough space to extract the paintings, sweat soaked through my clothes despite the cold. Each canvas emerged intact, protected by careful wrapping. I lined them up in the basement 12 windows into genius and gratitude. Winter's Mercy, Child's Wonder, Love's Kitchen. The others each capturing moments when human kindness transcended circumstance. Looking at them gathered together, I understood why everyone wanted them so desperately. Not just for monetary value, but for what they represented, proof that beauty could emerge from near tragedy. That connection mattered more than commerce, that art served purposes beyond decoration. My phone showed 2 hours remaining. I loaded the paintings carefully into Dad's old truck, securing each one. But I also grabbed something else, Dad's camcorder, the one he'd used to record every birthday, holiday, and family milestone. If this was ending, it would be documented. Truth would survive even if we didn't. The drive to Riverside Industrial Complex passed in a blur of empty streets and red lights I barely acknowledged. Each mile brought Mark's screams back, pushed me faster. Whatever Brittany's betrayal had unleashed, whatever Vance's corruption had enabled, whatever Kozlov's greed demanded, it all centered on these 12 canvases and the two siblings caught in their gravity. Building 7 loomed against pre-dawn darkness, all broken windows and rust-eaten metal. Cars waited outside expensive foreign models that looked obscene against industrial decay. I activated the camcorder with a dashboard mount and began unloading paintings. Leave them. Kozlov emerged from shadows flanked by men whose suits couldn't hide the weapons beneath. We'll handle transport. You're early, eager to save your brother. Where is he? Inside, waiting. Relatively intact, though his attitude required adjustment. Shall we complete our transaction? I followed him into the building, each footstep echoing. The interior had been cleared recently, dust patterns showing where equipment once stood. In the center, under harsh portable lights, Mark sat tied to a metal chair. His face was swollen, dried blood crusting beneath his nose, but his eyes were alive, finding mine with desperate hope. "Julia," he croaked. "I'm sorry, so sorry." "Touching," Kozlov interrupted. "Now the paintings. My expert will verify authenticity." Expert. But I knew before she entered. Dr. Eleanor Vance dressed impeccably despite the early hour, carrying authentication equipment like holy relics. "Julia," she said calmly as if we were meeting for tea, "I know this seems like betrayal, but you must understand. These paintings belong to the world, not hidden in farmhouse walls. Kozlov has promised to preserve them properly. In a private vault where no one else can see them." She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Compromises are necessary. At least they'll survive. Unlike the people you've betrayed to acquire them, drama doesn't become you." She moved to the first painting, beginning her examination. "Let's complete this professionally." I watched her work, this woman I'd trusted with authentication, now authenticating my family's destruction. Each painting passed her scrutiny. Genuine Hartleys worth millions. Kozlov's satisfaction grew with each confirmation, his men relaxing as payday approached. 11 paintings verified, Vance announced finally. "Where's the 12th? Everyone turned to me. I'd arranged only 11 canvases, keeping Winter's Mercy hidden. "That one stays with me." Kozlov's pleasant mask vanished. "We agreed on 12. "You demanded 12. I'm offering 11. More than enough to cover whatever debt you imagine exists. The last painting has personal significance. It shows my father saving Hartley's life. That story stays in our family." "You're hardly in a position to negotiate." He gestured, and one of his men pressed a gun to Mark's temple. 12 paintings or your brother dies." Mark found his voice stronger than I'd expected. "Don't do it, Julia. I made these choices. Don't let them take everything." The gunman hit him, splitting his lip fresh. I stepped forward instinctively, but other weapons swung my way. Kozlov smiled at the dynamics, a puppet master enjoying his strings. Family loyalty. So predictable. "Dr. Vance, would you retrieve the final painting from her vehicle?" But something shifted in Vance's expression as she looked at the 11 authenticated masterpieces. "Actually, Victor 11 Hartleys should more than satisfy your needs." The girl's right. Some stories deserve preservation beyond private vaults. "I don't pay you for philosophy, Eleanor. Get the painting." "No." She stepped away from him, closer to me. "I've authenticated dozens of stolen masterpieces for you, watched cultural heritage disappear into darkness. But these paintings, they're different. They represent human kindness without calculation. Maybe it's time I remembered why I became an art historian." Kozlov's face darkened. "You choose poorly, Doctor. Both of you." The building's main door crashed open. Not law enforcement, but Brittany, wild-eyed and carrying a gas can. "Everyone stop moving or I burn it all down." She sloshed gasoline across the floor, the fumes immediately overwhelming. In her other hand, she held a lighter thumb poised on the striker. Madness or desperation had driven her to this final gambit. "Brittany." Mark gasped. "What are you doing?" Saving you, you idiot, like always. Kozlov was never going to let us live. None of us. We know too much, have seen too much. But if the paintings burn, if everything burns, maybe we get out in the chaos. You'll destroy priceless art. Vance stepped toward the paintings protectively. Priceless to who? Brittany laughed hysterically. They're canvas and paint. We're flesh and blood. Choose which matters more. The standoff crystallized. Kozlov's men aimed at Brittany, but firing might ignite the gasoline. Brittany's lighter wavered desperation, making her unstable. Vance stood between everyone and the paintings, her betrayal transformed into protection. Mark bled in his chair while I calculated distances and possibilities. Into this tableau of greed and fear, I spoke with Dad's voice, Mom's wisdom, Hartley's gratitude. Nobody has to die. Nobody has to lose. Kozlov, take 10 paintings. Sell them, hide them, whatever brings you peace. Dr. Vance, take one for a museum. Let the public see what kindness creates. I keep Winter's mercy for my family. Everyone walks away with something. Except me, Brittany snarled. I get nothing while you all divide treasures. You get Mark, alive. Isn't that why you came back? Her hand trembled on the lighter. For a moment, the building held its breath. Then sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Chen hadn't listened. Law enforcement was coming, ready or not. Choose now, I urged. Take what's offered or lose everything when they arrive. The math was simple. 10 paintings for Kozlov worth $20 million. 1 for public display securing Vance's reputation. 1 for family legacy, or total loss when police arrived and evidence burned. Kozlov made the calculation quickly. Load 10 paintings, leave 2, move now. His men scrambled to comply, carrying canvases toward their vehicles. Vance carefully selected Child's Wonder, the painting of me at 3 for museum donation. Brittany lowered her lighter but kept the gasoline can close. As Kozlov prepared to leave, he paused beside me. You cost me 2 paintings with your negotiation. That debt will be remembered. Add it to the others, I replied steadily. I'm done being afraid of accounts that can never be settled. They left quickly, expensive engines roaring to life as sirens grew louder. Vance lingered, cradling her single painting. I'll ensure this reaches the Metropolitan. Anonymous donation, no questions asked. And Julia, I'm sorry. Greed corrupts even those who should know better. She departed as police cars screeched into the lot. Chen burst through the door, weapon drawn, finding only us and the chemical reek of gasoline. Brittany had already cut Mark free, supporting his battered form. They're gone, I told Chen simply. Took 10 paintings and left. High-speed chase might catch them, but they have a head start. 10 paintings worth $20 million, and you just let them go. I traded them for my brother's life. Seems fair to me. Chen surveyed the scene. Gasoline-soaked floor, abandoned authentication equipment. Blood on concrete. This isn't over. Kozlov doesn't forgive debts. Maybe not, but it's finished for now. Mark needs a hospital. Brittany needs rehab or therapy or both. I need to go home and hang 1 painting where Dad would have wanted it. Everything else is tomorrow's problem. They took Mark away in an ambulance while Brittany followed, clinging to his hand like salvation. Chen processed the scene, frustrated, but recognizing the futility of pursuit. The paintings were gone, scattered to wind like dandelion seeds. I drove home as dawn broke, Winter's mercy safe in the truck. 1 painting from 12 showing a man saving another man's life during a blizzard. The others would vanish into private collections or public galleries, their fate beyond my control. But this one would hang in the farmhouse, reminding future generations that kindness mattered more than currency. The ordeal had reached its breaking point, and somehow impossibly we'd survived. Broken but breathing, compromised but continuing. The paintings had revealed everyone's true nature, then dispersed to prevent further corruption. Dad would have understood. Sometimes preservation meant letting go, keeping only what truly mattered. 1 painting, 1 story, One family's proof that beauty emerged from unexpected places, usually right after everything seemed lost. 2 weeks passed in strange quietude. Mark recovered in the hospital, his body healing faster than his pride. Brittany attended court-mandated therapy, part of her plea deal for the gasoline incident. The farmhouse felt empty without crisis, like a battlefield after armies departed. Then Detective Chen called. "We need your help setting a trap. Kozlov's back in the country, and he's angry about the 2 paintings he didn't get." "That's your problem, not mine. He's been asking about you, about whether Winter's Mercy is really the only painting left. Some of his men think you kept others hidden. We can use that suspicion." I gripped the phone tighter. "I'm done with games, Detective. Find another way." "Julia, he kidnapped 3 people last month looking for hidden art collections. A grandfather in Boston, a curator in Philadelphia, a college student whose father might have owned a Monet. Only 2 came back alive. This isn't just about you anymore." The weight of that settled like lead. My choices had rippled outward Kozlov's frustrated greed, seeking other targets. "What do you need?" "Bait. Specifically, you claiming to have found the 12th painting, the one he thinks you kept. We'll use Preston's auction house as the venue. They've cooperated with law enforcement before, have excellent security, and Kozlov won't resist the legitimacy of acquiring a painting through proper channels. Except there is no 12th painting to find. He has 10, the Met has 1, I have 1. That's all 12. Kozlov doesn't believe that. His sources say Hartley painted 13 during his stay at your farmhouse, keeping 1 for himself that your father later acquired. It's nonsense, but Kozlov's convinced you're holding out. I thought about Dad's workshop, Brittany's cryptic comment about obvious hiding places. Had there been another painting, something Dad kept separate from the 12? When would this happen? Tomorrow night. Preston's is hosting a private viewing for select collectors. You arrive with the newly discovered painting, make sure Kozlov's people spot you, then lead them into our trap. Full surveillance tactical teams ready, prosecutor, standing by with federal charges. And if Kozlov doesn't take the bait, then we've lost nothing but time. But Julia, he's obsessed. The 2 paintings he missed have become symbols of failure. He'll come. After hanging up, I walked through the farmhouse, seeing it with new eyes. Where would Dad hide something precious beyond the 12 paintings I'd found? The workshop called to me unchanged since his death, except for dust and shadows. His tools hung in perfect order, each one a memory. The workbench bore scars from decades of projects. In the corner, his restoration cabinet held furniture pieces he'd been repairing for neighbors, who now probably wondered if they'd ever get them back. I opened the cabinet, checking each drawer, each hidden space Dad had built for storing delicate materials. Nothing but sandpaper, stain brushes for detail work. But wait, one brush wrapped in chamois cloth far too carefully preserved for furniture work. Unrolling the cloth revealed not just a brush, but a small canvas, maybe 8 inches by 10 inches. My breath caught. Hartley's signature graced the corner, but this painting differed from the others. Instead of capturing a moment from his stay, it showed the farmhouse itself viewed from the road in summer light. And on the back, Hartley's handwriting, "For Samuel, a promise to return one day and paint your daughter properly. Until then, this remembrance of sanctuary, 13 of 13, JMH." A 13th painting, smaller, simpler, but undeniably authentic. Dad had separated it from the others, keeping it with his restoration tools. Perhaps he'd planned to frame it properly someday, or maybe he liked having one piece entirely private, unknown, even to family. I held it, feeling the weight of possibility. This could be the bait Chen needed, but it was also the last undiscovered piece of Hartley's gratitude. Once revealed, it would become evidence property, anything but the personal memento Hartley intended. My phone rang, Mark, his voice stronger but cautious. "Julia," I heard from one of my old contacts. "Kozlov's definitely back. He's been showing photos of our family to people asking about other properties we might own, other hiding places. He's convinced you cheated him. The FBI wants me to help trap him. Silence, then. Are you going to... I don't know. I'm tired of all of this, Mark. The paintings were supposed to represent kindness, not all this greed and violence. That's my fault. I brought this to our door. But Julia, if you don't stop him now, he'll never leave us alone. People like Kozlov don't forgive. They collect debts forever. After we hung up, I made my decision. The 13th painting would serve its purpose not as bait, but as truth. I called Chen back. There is another painting, small, personal, but authentic. I'll bring it tomorrow. Excellent. We'll have undercover agents throughout the auction house and... I have conditions. When this ends, successful or not, I'm done. No more investigations, no more involvement. The painting goes to a museum afterwards somewhere children can see it, and Mark gets full immunity for his cooperation. I can arrange that. Julia, we're going to end this. Trust the plan. Trust. That word had caused so much trouble already. But what choice remained live forever? Watching shadows or face them one last time. The next evening, I dressed carefully in Mom's vintage black dress, the one she wore to gallery openings when she still believed her daughter might become a famous artist. The 13th painting rested in a proper portfolio case, protected and documented. Preston's auction house gleamed with old money confidence, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The legitimate art world's temple where millions changed hands over champagne and careful appraisals. I entered through the main door, making no attempt at subterfuge. Ms. Walker. Mr. Preston himself greeted me, playing his role perfectly. So exciting about your discovery. Quite a stir already among certain collectors. He guided me through galleries where actual collectors mingled with undercover agents. I spotted two immediately, their observant stillness giving them away. Others blended better, discussing art with surprising knowledge. Your painting will be revealed in the Sterling Room at 9 precisely. Preston explained loudly enough for nearby ears. We've arranged for Dr. Whitmore to authenticate publicly. Bidding begins at midnight for interested parties. Dr. Whitmore was Chen's invention and agent with art history credentials. But would Kozlov know that, or would greed override caution? I circulated accepting champagne I didn't drink, making small talk with strangers who might be criminals or cops. The 13th painting waited in Preston's vault, theoretically secure, but actually bait in an elaborate trap. At 8:30, I felt the atmosphere shift, a charge in the air like storm approach. Viktor Kozlov entered with two companions projecting wealth and menace in a perfectly tailored suit. His eyes found me immediately across the crowded gallery. He approached slowly, letting me see him coming, savoring my trapped expression. Ms. Walker, what an unexpected pleasure. I heard rumors of a new discovery. How fortunate for the art world. Mr. Kozlov, I thought you'd left the country. Business called me back. Unfinished business, you might say. Tell me, is it true? A 13th Hartley from your father's collection. You'll see at 9 with everyone else. Of course, though I admit curiosity about why you'd reveal it now after our previous negotiations. Unless perhaps you're hoping to attract better offers, I do admire ambition. I just want it properly preserved. Museums have resources private collectors might lack. His smile could have frozen hell. Museums, yes, though private collections offer certain advantages. Discretion, for instance. Safety for those who provide them. You understand preservation takes many forms. The threat slithered between polite words, but I glimpsed Chen near the bar positioning herself. Other agents drifted closer, tightening the net. Kozlov had walked into their trap, but predators rarely entered cages without testing exits first. 9 o'clock, I repeated, moving away. Everything will be clear then. He let me go, but I felt his gaze tracking my movement. The next 30 minutes crawled past. I made required conversations, played the nervous seller perfectly, all while watching Kozlov's men position themselves near exits and blind spots. Finally, 9 arrived. Preston called everyone to the Sterling Room, an intimate space with airport-level security disguised behind elegant wood paneling. The 13th painting waited on an easel covered by velvet cloth. "Ladies and gentlemen," Preston began, "tonight we present something extraordinary, a previously unknown work by J.M. Hartley from his legendary Lost Year, discovered in the estate of Samuel Walker, authenticated by Dr. Whitmore, and available for acquisition tonight." He pulled away the cloth with theatrical flair. The small painting glowed under perfect lighting, Hartley's farmhouse captured with loving detail. Gasps arose from real collectors, while fake ones photographed every angle. Dr. Whitmore, actually Agent Kim from the yard sale, performed her authentication routine flawlessly. Unquestionably genuine. The brushwork, the pigments, the subtle signature elements all confirm this as Hartley's work. Note particularly the emotional resonance characteristic of his gratitude period. "The bidding will commence at midnight," Preston announced, "beginning at $2 million. $3 million. Kozlov's voice cut through murmurs. "Cash immediate transfer. I'll take possession tonight." "Sir, the auction hasn't begun." $4,000,005, whatever number ends this charade. He stepped forward, Predator done with patience. "That painting belongs with its brothers in my collection. Name your price." This wasn't the plan. He was supposed to make his move during transport or in the parking structure where tactical teams waited. Instead, he'd chosen public aggression, calling the bluff. Chen moved, hand reaching inside her jacket, but Kozlov raised a finger. "I wouldn't. My men have interesting insurance policies. Anything happens to me here, photographs of every undercover agent in this room reach certain unfriendly governments. Your covers blown permanently, your operations compromised globally. Shall we continue civilizing, or must things become unpleasant?" The trap had reversed. Kozlov hadn't walked in blind. He'd come prepared with his own leverage. The agents froze, calculating consequences. Real collectors sensed danger beginning to edge toward exits. "Mr. Kozlov," I said, surprising myself with steady voice. "You want the painting, take it. I'm tired of games, tired of threats. Pay Mr. Preston his $5 million and end this." Julia, Chen warned, but I ignored her. Kozlov studied me, searching for deception. "Just like that, no conditions." "One condition. You leave my family alone forever. No revenge for the 2 paintings you missed, no future claims. You get 13 of 13, and we never see each other again." "Deal." He gestured to his men, who produced phones for wire transfers. $5 million to Preston's account. Though I'm curious why capitulate now. I looked at the painting, Dad's farmhouse glowing with Hartley's gratitude. Because holding on to beauty while living in fear isn't really living. Take it. Add it to your hidden vault. But know this, you're not collecting art. You're hoarding joy meant to be shared. That's your real poverty, Mr. Kozlov. You'll own 13 miracles but never understand what made them miraculous. His face darkened, but the transfer completed. Preston, sweating through his collar, confirmed the payment. Kozlov's men moved to collect the painting, but Chen stepped forward. "Actually, that painting's evidence in an ongoing federal investigation. Sorry, Mr. Kozlov. Your money will be refunded, but the art stays with us." "You dare!" "Oh, I dare. See, while you were threatening to expose undercover agents, my team was raiding your warehouses. Found some interesting things. Stolen paintings, smuggled artifacts enough to keep prosecutors busy for years. Your leverage just evaporated." Kozlov went very still. The room felt like a held breath, violence one wrong word away. Then he smiled cold and thin. "Well played, detective. Though evidence can disappear, witnesses can recant, cases can collapse. Enjoy your temporary victory." He turned to leave, pausing beside me. "You were right about one thing. I don't understand what makes art miraculous, but I understand power, and you've made an enemy with more of it than you can imagine. Watch your shadows, Ms. Walker. They hide patient things." They left without violence, but the threat lingered like cologne. Chen's team moved in, securing the painting and beginning to process the scene. Real collectors fled, while agents dropped their covers. "You did good," Chen told me. "We've got enough to hold him, maybe even convict if the evidence survives his lawyers. But not enough to stop him permanently." She shrugged. Rome wasn't built in a day, but his operations crippled, his reputation damaged. Sometimes that's the best justice we get. They took the 13th painting as evidence, promising it would reach a museum eventually. I left Preston's feeling hollow victory. The trap had partially worked, but Kozlov remained free-wounded and dangerous. Still, the paintings were beyond his reach now. Scattered to museums, evidence lockers, and private collections, they'd found their separate fates. My part in their story was ending, even if echoes might haunt forever. I drove home to find Mark waiting on the porch, still moving carefully from his injuries. "Heard it on the news. Kozlov's assets frozen, whole network under investigation. You did it." "We survived it. That's different from winning." "Maybe survival is winning when the game's rigged against you." We sat together watching stars appear over fields our father had worked. Somewhere paintings he'd preserved were beginning new chapters. The 13th painting would eventually hang where children could see it, sparking wonder about the farmhouse glowing with sunset light. Not the ending anyone planned, but perhaps the one Hartley would have understood. Beauty dispersed rather than hoarded, touching lives in unexpected ways. The trap had closed on greed, even if it couldn't contain it completely. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Kozlov's threats, legal complexities, the slow work of rebuilding trust between siblings who'd nearly destroyed each other. But tonight, we sat in peace on the porch of a farmhouse that had sheltered kindness and survived greed. That felt like victory enough. The false calm lasted exactly 1 week. I woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of breaking glass, my studio alarm shrieking through the night. By the time I reached the barn, flames were already consuming years of work. Student paintings, my supplies, even the walls where memories lived, all transformed into smoke and ash. The fire department arrived quickly, but not quickly enough. I stood in my nightgown and boots, watching orange light devour the place where I'd taught Sarah to paint, through addiction recovery, where Mrs. Chen had captured her childhood home, where Timothy had mourned his grandfather in oils and canvas. "Accelerant everywhere," the fire chief reported. "Professional job. You're lucky it didn't spread to the house." Lucky. I almost laughed at the word. This wasn't random arson, it was a message. Kozlov might be under investigation, but his reach remained long and his memory longer. Detective Chen arrived as dawn broke over the skeleton of my studio. She surveyed the damage with grim understanding. "He's escalating. This is just the beginning." "I thought you had him contained." "His lawyers are better than we anticipated. He's out on bail assets, technically frozen, but somehow still operational. We've got surveillance on him, but surveillance didn't stop this." I gestured at the smoking ruins. "What's next?" "The house. My students' homes. How far does his revenge reach?" "That's why I'm here. We're moving you to federal protection. New identity, new location, complete extraction from this situation. Running away while he destroys everything I've built. Living to build again somewhere else." "Julia, we intercepted communications. He's put a bounty on information about any remaining paintings. $500,000 to anyone who provides credible leads. Every criminal in 3 states is now searching." As if to underscore her point, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your student Timothy mentioned you sometimes paint at the community center after hours. Shame if something happened there too." The community center where I taught free classes where seniors learned watercolors and children discovered finger painting. Another piece of my life marked for destruction. "I can't live like this," I said, exhaustion bone deep. "Jumping at shadows, watching everything I care about burn. There has to be another way." Chen's phone rang. She listened, face darkening. "There's been an incident. Someone broke into the evidence locker where we stored the 13th painting. Guards were drugged, cameras mysteriously malfunctioned. The painting's gone." The last piece of Hartley's gratitude stolen from federal custody. Kozlov's message couldn't be clearer. Nowhere was safe. Nothing was protected. His reach extended even into law enforcement's heart. "Pack what you need," Chen ordered. "We're leaving in 30 minutes. But I was already walking toward what remained of the studio, ignoring her calls. In the ashes, metal easels stood like twisted skeletons. The fireproof cabinet Dad had installed for storing solvents had survived its contents intact, but irrelevant now. Wait, Dad's fireproof cabinet? Why would he install something so expensive for a barn studio? I knelt, brushing away debris, feeling along the cabinet's base. There a hidden latch, the kind he'd built into furniture for decades. The false bottom opened to reveal a metal box. Inside, documents I'd never seen, correspondence between Dad and Hartley spanning 40 years. Letters discussing art philosophy, the nature of gratitude, and photographs of paintings I didn't recognize, works Hartley had created after his stay, but inspired by it. The final letter, dated a month before Dad's death, contained a revelation. "Samuel, I've arranged for the Museum of Modern Art to acquire a special collection upon my death paintings inspired by your kindness. They don't know the connection yet, but someday the world will understand what your mercy created. The 13 paintings I gave you were just the beginning. My entire late period flows from that winter night. Guard our secret until the time is right. Your eternal friend, J.M." Chen read over my shoulder, understanding dawning. "Hartley's late paintings, the ones that made him legendary, they all connect to your father. To that night, Dad saved him. Every masterpiece flowing from one act of kindness." I held the letters like holy relics. This is what Kozlov's really hunting. Not just 13 paintings, but the story that transforms Hartley's entire legacy. The secret that would make every late Hartley painting exponentially more valuable. Or worthless, depending on perspective, Chen mused. Collectors who paid millions thinking they owned unique visions might not appreciate learning they all stem from one rescue in rural Pennsylvania. My phone rang. Dr. Eleanor Vance calling from federal custody where she awaited trial. "Julia, I heard about the fire. I know I have no right to ask, but you need to know something. Kozlov's planning something bigger. He's gathered a syndicate of collectors, all with stakes in Hartley's late works. If the connection to your father becomes public, their investments crash. They'll do anything to suppress it." "Why tell me this?" "Because I spent my career serving art instead of truth. Don't make my mistake. Whatever documents you have, whatever proof exists, get it public before they bury it, and you." The call ended, leaving new weight on my shoulders. This wasn't just about 13 paintings anymore, but about artistic legacy market manipulation and the dangerous intersection of truth and greed. Chen made rapid calls, arranging resources. "We need to get those documents authenticated and public immediately. Every major newspaper, museum, academic journal. Flood the zone before Kozlov can react." But through the studio's collapsed wall, I saw cars approaching. Not official vehicles, but black SUVs with tinted windows. Too many for coincidence, too organized for random criminals. "Go," I told Chen, shoving the document box into her hands. "Get these public. I'll buy time." "I'm not leaving you." "You are. Those documents matter more than either of us. Go." She ran for her car as the SUVs surrounded the farmhouse. I stood among studio ruins, waiting. If this was ending, it would end where it started, on land my father had protected with kindness. Men emerged from vehicles, not Kozlov's usual thugs, but older, wealthier, radiating the kind of power that bought governments. The syndicate itself come to handle personally what subordinates had failed to accomplish. Ms. Walker. The speaker wore a suit worth more than most cars. "We represent concerned collectors with significant investments in artistic authenticity. We believe you possess documents that could create misunderstandings about provenance and value. You mean truth that would reveal your precious paintings all flow from my father's kindness. Truth is negotiable. We're prepared to offer $20 million for those documents and your permanent silence. Enough to rebuild your studio, your life, your dreams. All we ask is discretion about artistic origins. And if I refuse, his smile never wavered. Then we pursue other negotiations. Your brother remains vulnerable. Your students have families. Even federal protection has limits when resources are properly applied. Consider carefully. Behind them, I saw Chen's car disappearing down the road. Every second I stalled was another second for truth to escape their reach. I need time to think. You have 5 minutes. We're reasonable men, Ms. Walker, but patience has limits. I retreated into the farmhouse knowing they'd follow if I tried to run. 5 minutes to decide between wealth and truth, safety and integrity. Dad's voice echoed in memory. Julia Bug, sometimes the right choice is the one that costs most. Through the window, I watched them conferring, certain of success. They'd bought silence before buried inconvenient truths under money and threats. But they'd miscalculated one thing. They thought I was alone. Movement in the fields caught my eye. My students, dozens of them, walking through morning mist toward the farmhouse. Mrs. Chen led them carrying a new painting. Timothy followed with canvases of his own. Sarah, the recovering addict, held brushes like weapons. The community center, seniors, the church youth group, even children from my summer programs. They surrounded the syndicate's vehicles, not threatening, but present. Witnesses to whatever came next. The wealthy men looked uncertain violence harder when cameras held by children recorded everything. "Time's up," the spokesman called. "Your decision—" I emerged backed by an army of artists. My decision is this. Truth isn't for sale. My father saved Hartley's life, and Hartley spent 40 years painting gratitude. Every masterpiece flowing from kindness, every beauty born from mercy, that story belongs to the world, not your vaults. You're making a dangerous choice. No, I'm making my father's choice. Art serves connection, not collection. You can threaten, burn, steal, but you can't stop truth once it starts spreading. By now, those documents are being verified, copied, distributed. By tomorrow, the world knows what really inspired Hartley's greatest works. The spokesman's face showed calculation, then resignation. This isn't over. Markets will crash. Values will plummet. Lawyers will feast for decades. You've destroyed billions in perceived worth. I've revealed billions in actual worth. Love, gratitude, human connection. Things you can't price or hoard or lock away. They left, recognizing futility. The students remained setting up easels among studio ruins. Mrs. Chen began painting the sunrise over destruction. Timothy captured the moment truth faced greed. Sarah mixed colors on a palette salvaged from ashes. By noon, news broke worldwide. Hartley's secret revealed entire late period inspired by single act of kindness. Museums scrambled to recontextualize collections. Collectors raged about manipulated markets. Academics rejoiced at new understanding. But in the ruins of my studio, something more important happened. Art continued. Students painted truth-beauty connection, all the things Kozlov and his syndicate had tried to steal or suppress. The hunt had intensified until it consumed itself, leaving only what mattered people, creating meaning from chaos. Chen returned with federal protection for everyone threatened. Kozlov's syndicate collapsed under investigation, their conspiracy too exposed to continue. The 13th painting was recovered from a private jet, fleeing the country, destined now for the Smithsonian. As sunset approached, I surveyed the gathered artists, the smoking ruins, the farmhouse still standing. The hunt was over, not because we'd won, but because we'd refused to be prey. Truth had escaped its cage, spreading like spilled paint across the world's canvas. Tomorrow would bring insurance claims, rebuilding plans, the slow work of restoration. But today, surrounded by students painting in defiance of destruction, I understood what Dad had always known. Beauty persists not in vaults or values, but in the simple act of creation, the gratitude of sharing the mercy of teaching others to see. The paintings were gone, scattered, burned, or locked in evidence. but their purpose lived on in every brushstroke laid down by students who'd learned that art meant more than money, that kindness created more than greed could ever steal. The hunt had intensified until it revealed its own emptiness. What remained was what had always mattered people paint and the endless possibility of creation. 3 months after the studio burned, I'd found a new rhythm. Teaching at the community center, rebuilding, slowly watching the art world struggle with Hartley's revealed history. Some collectors embraced the deeper meaning, while others filed lawsuits that would drag on for years. I thought the worst had passed. Then Emma got sick. 8 years old, my favorite student at the Children's Hospital, where I'd volunteered for years. Leukemia had returned aggressively, and she was losing the fight. I spent more time there teaching bedside when she couldn't make it to the activity room. We painted flowers, butterflies, all the bright things she might not see bloom. That's where Kozlov found me. I was hanging Emma's latest painting, a rainbow, over a house that looked suspiciously like the farmhouse when he walked into the children's ward. No security stopped him. He'd made a generous donation that morning, earning a VIP visitor badge. He wore an expensive suit and a gentle smile, looking every inch the philanthropic businessman. Ms. Walker, still teaching, I see. He admired Emma's painting with what seemed like genuine interest. Talented student. Reminds me of another young artist many years ago. Get out. I kept my voice low, mindful of the children nearby. You have no business here. On the contrary, I've just pledged $2 million for a new pediatric wing. My business is wherever I choose to make it. He moved closer, voice dropping. We need to discuss unfinished matters. Your father's documents created quite a stir. Cost me and my associates considerable sums. Good. Is it tell me how much does experimental treatment cost for aggressive childhood leukemia? The kind insurance won't cover the kind that might save young Emma. Ice flooded my veins. You investigated a sick child. I investigate everything that matters to those who matter to me, or in this case, who matter to my interests. Did you know there's a trial program in Switzerland, remarkable success rates? Of course it requires certain resources. Emma coughed in her bed, a sound that twisted my heart. Her mother sat beside her reading stories, both pretending everything would be fine. The paintings on the walls, cheerful lies against antiseptic white. What do you want, Kozlov? Simple. Publicly recant your father's documents. Claim they were forgeries created for attention. Restore market confidence in Hartley's works. In exchange, young Emma gets her Swiss treatment fully funded. You get to paint more rainbows with her. Destroy my father's reputation to save a child. Perspective is everything. Your father's dead. His reputation can't suffer. Emma's alive, but perhaps not for long without intervention. Simple mathematics. A nurse approached, checking on Emma. Kozlov played the concerned donor perfectly, asking about the children's needs, promising more support. The nurse glowed with gratitude, unaware she thanked a monster. When she left, Kozlov continued, I've prepared everything. Press release, supporting documentation, even experts willing to verify your confession. One signature, one press conference, and Emma flies to Switzerland tomorrow. And if I refuse, then you explain to her parents why you value dead history over living hope. He pulled out photos of the Swiss clinic survival statistics children playing in alpine sunshine after successful treatment. Pride or life, Ms. Walker? Choose. I looked at Emma painting despite exhaustion. She'd asked me yesterday if angels painted in heaven worried she'd have no teacher there. The question had broken me more than all of Kozlov's previous cruelties combined. I need to see the guarantee. Legal documents ensuring her treatment regardless of public reaction to my recantation. Naturally. He produced a folder contracts already prepared. My lawyers thought of everything. Irrevocable trust fund for her treatment, no conditions after your public statement. Even if you later claim coercion, the funds remain protected for Emma's care. I read through legalese that bound me to lies while freeing Emma to live. Each page felt like betrayal of Dad's memory, But what was memory against a child's laughter? What was truth against tomorrow's empty bed? One condition, I said. I do this here in front of the children. No formal press conference. If I'm destroying my father's legacy, it happens where life matters most. Kozlov considered, then nodded. Dramatic. I approve. Shall we say, tomorrow at noon I'll ensure appropriate media attendance. He left taking his poison promises with him. I spent the rest of the day with Emma painting her dreams while knowing I'd soon paint myself as a liar. Her parents thanked me for the distraction, unaware of the bargain struck in their daughter's name. That night I called Chen. Kozlov's blackmailing me. Emma's life for my father's reputation. We can arrest him, charge him with extortion. And Emma dies while lawyers argue. He's won Chen. I won't sacrifice a child for principles. There has to be another way. Find it by noon tomorrow, or I make my father a fraud to save an 8-year-old who wants to paint rainbows. Sleep proved impossible. I drafted and redrafted my statement, each version more damning than the last. By dawn, I'd crafted lies comprehensive enough to satisfy Kozlov, while vague enough to minimize damage. Not that minimizing mattered when betraying everything Dad represented. I arrived early at the hospital bringing all my painting supplies. If this was my last day of integrity, the children would have art to remember. We painted together all morning, Emma rallying enough to create a garden scene bursting with impossible flowers. As noon approached, media gathered in the lobby. Kozlov had orchestrated perfectly major outlets present to witness my destruction. He waited in the children's activity room, chatting with parents who saw only a generous benefactor. Ready? He asked, satisfaction gleaming in his eyes. I stood before cameras, Emma, visible in the background painting despite her IV lines. The prepared statement weighed like lead in my hands. One lie to save one life. Simple mathematics, as Kozlov said. I have something to say about the Hartley documents. I began, voice steady despite internal storms. The room quieted, reporters leaning forward. The truth is beautiful. Emma's voice rang out clear despite weakness. She'd stood holding her new painting high. Miss Julia taught me that truth is the most beautiful thing we can paint. Other children joined her voices, creating chorus. Truth is beautiful, paint the truth. Miss Julia paints truth. They'd organized this 8-year-old activists defending their teacher without understanding the stakes. Emma's painting showed the farmhouse surrounded by hearts. Truth lives here, painted in rainbow letters across the sky. Kozlov's face darkened. He moved toward Emma, perhaps to whisper threats, but suddenly the room filled with unexpected visitors. Former students, dozens of them, filing in with their own paintings. Mrs. Chen carried her landscape from that yard sale day. Timothy brought his grandfather's portrait. Sarah held an abstract expressing recovery's complexity. But most surprising was who led them, Dr. Eleanor Vance, out on bail carrying a canvas I'd never seen. One of Hartley's final works painted weeks before his death. Before Ms. Walker speaks, Vance announced the art world should see this. She unveiled the painting, The Farmhouse in Snow, a figure carrying another to safety. Hartley's last painting, titled The Debt That Creates. He sent it to me with instructions to reveal it only when someone tried to diminish Samuel Walker's legacy. She produced a letter, Hartley's shaking handwriting still legible. Eleanor, they'll try to make it about money someday. They always do. When that happens, show them this. Samuel Walker saved more than my life. He saved art's purpose. Anyone who claims otherwise serves greed, not truth. Let the children judge. The media turned to Kozlov, sensing bigger story than expected. He maintained composure, but calculation flickered behind his eyes. The narrative was slipping from his control. Mr. Kozlov, a reporter asked, "Is it true you're pressuring Ms. Walker to recant her father's documents?" Ridiculous. I'm here as a donor supporting sick children. Ms. Walker clearly orchestrated this circus to avoid admitting her fraud. Then you won't mind if I speak truthfully? I asked, seizing the moment. If there's no pressure, no threats against children's lives, trapped by his own denials, he nodded tightly. Speak freely. I tore up the prepared statement. The truth is, my father saved Hartley's life. The truth is, Hartley painted gratitude for 40 years. The truth is, some people see beauty as commodity while others see it as gift. And the truth is everyone in this room must choose which vision to serve. Prettily said, Kozlov responded. But speeches don't fund medical treatments. Ask Emma's parents what matters more, your truth or their daughter's life. Emma's mother stood face-streaked with tears. Don't you dare use my daughter's illness as a weapon. We'll find another way, even if it means selling everything we own. Which won't be nearly enough, Kozlov noted coldly. Swiss treatments cost millions, not good intentions. That's when Mark entered, supported by Brittany, but walking on his own. He carried a banker's box official documents visible. Actually, about those millions. Turns out, when you're under federal investigation, assets get frozen improperly sometimes. My lawyers found interesting irregularities in how Kozlov's funds were handled. He pulled out papers. This morning, a judge agreed. Improper asset freezing requires compensation. The government owes Kozlov's victims approximately $3 million in damages. I'm naming Emma's family as primary victims of his extortion. Congratulations, you're getting Swiss treatment, courtesy of legal technicalities. Kozlov's composure finally cracked. You can't. That's not how asset forfeiture works. It is when your lawyers are better than government lawyers, Brittany added sweetly. We should know. We've been studying your legal strategies for months. Turns out you taught us too well. The room erupted in questions, cameras capturing everything. Kozlov found himself surrounded by former victims, current investigators, and children still chanting about truth's beauty. His careful plan had collapsed into chaos. This isn't over, he snarled at me. Legal tricks won't last. That child's treatment will be tied up in court for years. Dr. Vance stepped forward. Actually, it will be over quite soon. You see, I've been cooperating fully with authorities. Every crime, every stolen painting, every bribed official. My testimony alone will ensure you never threaten another child. Security arrived, real security this time, led by Chen. Mr. Kozlov, you're under arrest for attempted extortion, witness tampering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Your donation to the hospital is appreciated, but your presence is no longer required. As they led him away, he passed Emma's bed. She looked up at him with the fearless clarity of childhood. You're not very good at painting truth, are you? Miss Julia says, that's okay. Everyone can learn. The room burst into laughter tension, breaking like fever. Emma's innocent critique had reduced a dangerous man to a failed art student. Even Kozlov's lawyers couldn't spin that moment. The media dispersed with their story. Art community rallies to protect truth and sick child. Not the narrative Kozlov had planned, but the one truth painted despite his efforts. Later, as Emma napped, surrounded by new paintings, her parents thanked me through tears. The treatment in Switzerland, we can't believe it's real. It's real. Mark's lawyers will handle everything. Emma will paint alpine flowers by spring. That evening, the children's ward felt lighter, not just because Kozlov was gone, but because truth had won without sacrifice. Emma would live, Dad's legacy stood intact, and the art community had proven beauty meant more than money. Chen found me cleaning brushes, the simple ritual grounding after chaos. Kozlov's syndicate is falling apart. Vance gave us everything. This time, he won't escape. It was never about him escaping. It was about us not becoming him in the fight. She understood. We'd won not through lies or violence, but through community creativity, and children brave enough to chant truth in power's face. The hospital showdown had revealed everyone's character, and beauty had triumphed over greed once more. As I left that night, Emma's painting caught hallway light. The rainbow farmhouse glowed with promise. Truth lives here, proclaiming what money could never buy. Tomorrow she'd fly to Switzerland for treatment. Tonight, her art proclaimed victory, more lasting than any legal document. The showdown had ended with the only outcome that mattered: a child would live to paint more rainbows, and truth would survive to inspire more beauty. Everything else was just expensive noise from people who'd forgotten what hospitals were really for. Healing happened in many ways, sometimes through medicine, sometimes through art, sometimes through standing together when standing alone seemed impossible. Today, all three had combined to paint hope across fear's canvas. The children had taught the adults what we'd nearly forgotten. Truth was beautiful. Beauty was truthful. And both were worth more than all the money men like Kozlov could ever steal or spend. 6 months later, everything had changed, yet nothing had. Emma thrived in Switzerland, sending paintings of alpine flowers that covered my refrigerator. Kozlov awaited trial in federal custody, his empire dismantled piece by legal piece. The farmhouse stood peaceful studio rebuilt with insurance money and community donations. But the 12 paintings remained scattered, their story incomplete. That's when Marcus Chen, Detective Chen's brother and renowned gallery owner, approached me with an impossible proposition. "A single night," he explained over coffee. "Every Hartley from your father's collection gathered for the first and only time. We'll call it the Gratitude Exhibition. Museums have agreed to loan their pieces. Private collectors are cooperating. Even evidence will be temporarily released. One night to show the world what kindness created." Why would collectors who fought the truth suddenly cooperate? Because the story increased their paintings' cultural value beyond monetary worth. They own pieces of the greatest artistic thank you note in history. Plus, full authentication and documentation will stabilize the market they're so worried about. I thought about the paintings scattered like seeds. Winter's Mercy in an evidence locker. Child's Wonder at the Met. The 10 Kozlov had taken recovered and held pending trial. The 13th painting awaiting its Smithsonian home. All together, they'd tell the complete story of transformation through gratitude. "One condition," I said. "The opening benefits the Children's Hospital, every dollar toward families who can't afford treatment." "Done. We'll make it the art event of the decade." Planning consumed 2 months. Security alone required coordination between federal agencies, private firms, and international insurers. Each painting needed climate-controlled transport expert handlers and documentation chains that would make lawyers rich. But harder than logistics was convincing Mark to attend. He'd maintained sobriety since the kidnapping, but public events triggered anxiety. "I don't belong there," he insisted. "Not after everything I did." "You belong because you're family, because you changed, because the story includes redemption, not just gratitude." The night arrived with April rain that turned the city into an impressionist painting. The gallery glowed like a beacon, crowds gathering despite weather. I wore Mom's dress again, the same one from the auction house trap, reclaiming it from bad memories. Inside, the paintings hung in chronological order, telling their story, room by room. Winter's Mercy began the journey, those swirls of snow and amber warmth. Audio guides featured Dad's voice excerpts from his journal I'd recorded before his death, never knowing they'd serve this purpose. The crowd mixed celebrities with students, collectors, with children from the hospital. Mrs. Chen stood before her reclaimed landscape, tears streaming. Timothy's family surrounded him as he explained how grief could become beauty. Sarah brought her sponsor, showing how art aided recovery. But the most powerful moment came when Dr. Vance arrived. Out on bail, banned from formal authentication work, she'd still come. The crowd parted uneasily, unsure how to treat the expert who'd betrayed, then redeemed herself. She went straight to Love's Kitchen, the painting of my mother cooking. "I remember when Hartley described this one," she said to anyone listening. "He said Mrs. Walker's soup tasted like home feels. Took him 20 attempts to capture steam that conveyed love instead of just heat." People listened despite themselves. Whatever her crimes, Vance's knowledge remained unparalleled. She moved through the gallery, revealing details about each painting, hidden symbols, technique, evolution, the way Hartley's palette brightened with each expression of gratitude. See how the brushwork changes? She pointed to subtle differences. Early pieces show technique. These show soul. That's what separates craft from art, the willingness to let emotion guide the brush. Mark arrived halfway through Brittany beside him. He'd lost weight, gained clarity, looked more like the brother who'd taught me to ride a bike than the desperate man who'd threatened everything. The crowd recognized him, whispers following, but he walked steadily to where I waited. "I'm sorry," he said simply, "for all of it." "I know. Look around, Mark. This is what Dad preserved, what you helped preserve even through mistakes." He studied the paintings with new eyes, seeing past dollar signs to their actual worth. He knew, didn't he, Dad? Knew I'd fail, but also knew I'd need something to find my way back. He knew you were human. That's all any of us are. Chen appeared no longer detective, but just Marcus's sister, enjoying art without investigating crimes. Beautiful show, though security's a nightmare. Do you know how many former Kozlov associates we've spotted trying to get in? Let them look. Let them see what they'll never own. Beauty belongs to everyone or no one. The evening's highlight came when Emma appeared on video link from Switzerland. She'd painted her own version of Winter's Mercy, the farmhouse surrounded by alpine flowers that grew from snow. "Thank you for teaching me truth is beautiful," she said, holding up her painting. "I'm teaching Swiss children now, truth spreads like flowers." The crowd applauded, many wiping eyes. Her survival and joy completed the exhibition's narrative. From near death to new life, from hidden gratitude to public celebration, from greed's grasp to love's triumph. As closing time approached, I found myself in the final room with all 13 paintings visible together. The story they told seemed both smaller and larger than individual canvases suggested. One man saved another from freezing. That other man spent 40 years saying thank you. Simple actions creating complex beauty. "Remarkable," a voice said behind me. I turned to find a woman I didn't recognize, elderly but elegant. "I'm Mrs. Hartley, James's widow." My breath caught. "I didn't know you were coming." How could I miss seeing my husband's heart displayed so perfectly? He talked about your father constantly those last years, said Samuel Walker proved humanity deserved art, not the other way around. She moved to Winter's Mercy, touching the frame gently. This was the first painting he showed me after that night. Still wet, still wild with gratitude. He said he'd painted his own salvation. "I'm sorry we couldn't keep them together. The paintings, I mean." "Oh, my dear, they were never meant to stay together. Like children, they needed to find their own homes, tell their own stories. Tonight's gathering is beautiful, but temporary beauty often means most." She produced an envelope worn with age. "James wrote this for your father but never sent it. Perhaps you should have it now." Inside, Hartley's handwriting filled pages with philosophical musings about debt gratitude and the obligation of rescued souls. But the last paragraph struck deepest. "Samuel, I've spent decades trying to repay an unpayable debt. But watching you with your daughter, I understand finally. You didn't save me to create obligation. You saved me because that's who you are. The paintings aren't payment. They're mirrors reflecting the light you showed me back into the world. May that light never dim." The letter blurred through tears. Around me, the exhibition continued its final hour, strangers becoming community, through shared witness of beauty. Mark talked with young artists, sharing hard-won wisdom about choosing meaning over money. Brittany networked with legitimate purpose, connecting donors with hospital needs. Chen ensured security while her brother sold artwork to benefit treatment funds. Even Vance found redemption teaching children to spot authentic beauty in brushstrokes or souls. Her expertise, freed from greed's corruption, served its original purpose, helping others see deeply. As lights dimmed and paintings prepared for separation, I stood in the gallery's heart, surrounded by gratitude made visible. Tomorrow the canvases would scatter again. Winter's Mercy, returning to evidence others to museums and vaults, the 13th beginning its Smithsonian journey. But tonight they'd accomplished what Hartley intended and Dad preserved. They'd shown that kindness creates ripples across decades, that beauty serves connection, not collection, that gratitude expressed multiplies rather than diminishes. The exhibition raised $3 million for the hospital, enough to help dozens of families afford treatment. But money was the least of its accomplishments. It had gathered a community, healed relationships, proved that truth and beauty could survive greed's assault. As the last visitors left, I helped pack the paintings for transport, each wrapped carefully, destined for separate tomorrows. But I wasn't sad. Like Mrs. Hartley said, temporary beauty often meant most. We'd had our moment of completion, our glimpse of the whole story. "Thank you," Marcus Chen said as we supervised loading. "This meant more than you know. My sister spent years seeing art crime. Tonight she saw art's purpose." Through gallery windows, the rain had stopped. City lights reflected in wet streets like earthbound stars. Somewhere, Emma slept surrounded by alpine flowers. Somewhere, Kozlov counted days in a cell. Somewhere, each painting would continue its journey. But here in this moment, gratitude's circle closed gently. What began with rescue in a blizzard culminated in beauty, shared freely. The gallery opening had opened more than doors. It had opened hearts, minds, possibilities. I drove home to the farmhouse where it all began. One painting waited there, Winter's Mercy, returning after the trial. But I carried all 13 in memory, now their complete story told at last. The exhibition ended, but the gratitude it celebrated would continue spiraling outward, touching lives in ways we couldn't imagine. Just as Dad's kindness had created unexpected beauty, tonight's gathering would plant seeds in souls ready for transformation. That's what Hartley had understood, what Dad had preserved, what the paintings had insisted on teaching. Beauty shared multiplies infinitely. Greed might grasp, but gratitude opened hands and hearts, creating space for miracles disguised as ordinary kindness. The gallery lights went dark, but the illumination continued. 13 paintings had shown their combined power, then dispersed to spread light separately. The opening had closed, but what it opened would never shut again. The federal courthouse in Philadelphia stood like a fortress of marble and justice, its steps crowded with media as Kozlov's trial entered its final week. I testified days earlier, recounting everything from Mark's first threats to the hospital showdown. Now came the verdicts, not just for Kozlov, but for everyone caught in the painting's orbit. Inside courtroom 6, Kozlov sat diminished. Federal custody had stripped away his polished veneer, revealing the desperate man beneath. His legal team, the best money could buy, had fought viciously. But evidence mounted like paint layers: financial crimes, art theft, extortion, conspiracy, reaching back decades. Detective Chen had built an airtight case. Vance's cooperation provided insider details. Mark's testimony about the kidnapping added visceral reality. Even Brittany had contributed her secret recordings, proving conspiracy. But the prosecution's masterpiece was the paper trail. Thousands of documents showing how greed had corrupted the art world's foundations. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Harrison asked. "We have, Your Honor." What followed was a symphony of guilty verdicts. 43 counts, each one landing like a gavel strike. Racketeering, money laundering, interstate commerce violations, kidnapping, extortion. The list continued until Kozlov's empire of theft lay officially demolished. But the criminal trial was only part of Justice's canvas. In the gallery, reporters waited for my response. I'd prepared nothing trusting truth to find its own words. "Mr. Kozlov stole beauty and hoarded wonder," I said simply. "He'll spend decades in a cell smaller than any painting. But the real justice isn't his imprisonment. It's that the paintings survived to inspire, that Emma lived to create, that community proved stronger than greed." Across town, another courtroom hosted a different reckoning. The syndicate members who'd threatened me at the farmhouse faced their own trials. But here, justice took an unexpected form. Rather than imprisonment, the judge ordered something: revolutionary community service teaching art in prisons, showing inmates how creativity might redirect lives. "You gentlemen trafficked in beauty while understanding nothing about its creation," Judge Martinez proclaimed. "Your sentence is to learn. 5,000 hours teaching art to those society abandoned. Perhaps helping others create will teach you beauty's actual value." Mark's legal situation resolved differently. Prosecutors, recognizing his cooperation and genuine transformation, offered deferred sentencing conditional on continued sobriety and community service. He'd spend 2 years teaching construction skills at a rehabilitation center building lives, instead of just buildings. "I'm grateful," he told me after court, "not just for avoiding prison, but for the chance to repay properly. Every person I help find work that's partial payment on what I nearly destroyed." Brittany negotiated her own deal, turning state's evidence about real estate fraud in exchange for probation. She'd continue working, but under strict oversight, her commissions funding art programs for at-risk youth. "I'm good at selling things," she admitted. "Might as well sell something worthwhile." Dr. Vance faced the harshest personal reckoning. Stripped of credentials, banned from authentication work, she could have disappeared into shame. Instead, she volunteered at the Children's Hospital teaching young patients art history without price tags attached. "I spent 40 years serving the wrong master," she explained while helping Emma's classmates understand color theory via video link. Markets values authentication codes. "I forgot art exists to move souls, not portfolios." The civil trials brought different satisfactions. Kozlov's victims, some robbed decades ago, received compensation from his seized assets. Museums recovered stolen works. Families reunited with heritage thought lost forever. Each returned piece told a story of patience, rewarded justice, delayed but not denied. But the most significant legal outcome happened quietly. The Hartley Foundation, working with Dad's lawyer, Mr. Peterson, established new protocols for artistic legacy protection. The Samuel Walker provision ensured donated artworks couldn't be weaponized by greed, that gratitude given freely remained free. "Your father would be proud," Peterson said, finalizing documents. "He always believed law should serve justice, not just precedent. This provision does both." 6 months into Kozlov's sentence, I received an unexpected letter. His handwriting, now shaky, filled pages with what might have been remorse. "Ms. Walker, I write from a cell where I contemplate mistakes. You asked once if I understood what made art miraculous. I didn't then. I'm learning now. The prison library has art books. I study them like you once studied my crimes. Perhaps understanding begins with admitting ignorance. I don't ask forgiveness, only that you know your father's kindness ripples even here. Respectfully, V. Kozlov." I didn't respond. Some conversations end naturally, their purpose fulfilled by being spoken. But I saved the letter as a reminder that even the greediest hearts might harbor seeds of transformation. The FBI's art crime team used our case to revolutionize their approach. Chen received a promotion, leading a new task force focused on preventing theft rather than just solving it. "We're calling it the Walker Protocol," she told me, "protecting beauty before it needs recovering." Museums worldwide adjusted their acquisition policies, implementing stricter provenance requirements. Collectors found themselves scrutinize their hoarding impulses, checked by new transparency demands. The art world, forced into sunlight, began slowly healing from decades of shadow dealings. The paintings themselves found appropriate homes. Winter's Mercy went to the Smithsonian as promised. The Met kept Child's Wonder, displaying it with the full story of its creation. The remaining 10 recovered from Kozlov's network spread across institutions dedicated to public access. Each museum created educational programs around their Hartley painting. Children learned about gratitude through art. Adults discovered that beauty's value transcended market prices. The paintings taught constantly, Professor Hartley's final lecture series on human connection. Emma returned from Switzerland, fully recovered her experience, inspiring a new passion. "I want to be an art therapist," she announced. "Help sick kids like Miss Julia helped me. Painting saves lives differently than medicine, but both matter." Her first public exhibition held at the hospital featured alpine landscapes, mixed with memories of illness transformed into hope. Every piece sold proceeds, funding art supplies for pediatric wards nationwide. At 8 years old, she understood what Kozloff had spent 70 years missing: beauty shared multiplies infinitely. The farmhouse studio reopened with a celebration. Students old and new gathered, filling the space with creative energy. We painted together, each canvas a small victory over forces that had tried to reduce art to commodity. Mark attended sober for a full year. He'd started dating someone from his recovery group, a teacher who saw past his mistakes to possible futures. "She makes me want to build things that last," he confided. "Not just structures, relationships, trust, all the stuff I demolished before." That evening, as students worked and laughter filled the space where flames once consumed, I understood justice's true form. Not just verdicts and sentences, but transformation. Everyone touched by the painting's journey had changed, mostly for the better. The syndicate members discovered teaching imprisoned spirits release their own. Vance found redemption in serving without authentication's authority. Mark rebuilt himself alongside others' lives. Brittany sold hope instead of just houses. Even Kozloff in his cell began seeing what he'd missed while possessing. Justice had been served in portions appropriate to each appetite. Those who hoarded faced emptiness. Those who threatened found themselves threatened by change. Those who corrupted discovered corruption's cost. But also, those who chose differently found paths toward light. As the sun set over the farmhouse, casting golden light through studio windows, I thought about Dad. His simple act of kindness during a blizzard had created ripples, still spreading. Hartley painted those ripples, I'd protected them, and now they touched lives beyond counting. The trials had ended, verdicts rendered, sentences begun. Legal justice, imperfect but necessary, had run its course. But the deeper justice, beauty, surviving greed, community, defeating isolation, transformation following destruction that would continue long after courthouse doors closed. I picked up my brush, joining students in creation. Somewhere, Emma painted hope in Switzerland. Somewhere, Kozloff studied what he'd missed. Somewhere, each painting taught its portion of truth. And here in the studio that refused to stay, burned art continued its ancient work of turning pain into beauty, one brushstroke at a time. Justice had been served, but more importantly, mercy had seasoned justice with possibility. The painting's journey from hidden gratitude to public inspiration showed that even the darkest chapters could end with light if enough people chose to paint it into existence. The last student left near midnight. I stood alone in the studio, surrounded by fresh paintings drying on easels. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more lessons, continued healing. But tonight, Justice's portrait was complete, signed not with verdicts, but with all the lives transformed by choosing beauty over greed. Dad would have appreciated the irony. He'd saved one life, which created art, which saved other lives, which created more art, spiraling outward like galaxies born from single stars. Justice wasn't just served, it was shared, multiplying like loaves and fishes, feeding spirits hungry for meaning. The gavel had fallen, but the echo continued. In every painting created by students who learned that beauty mattered more than money. In every child who saw Hartley's work and understood gratitude. In every former criminal teaching art to the incarcerated. Justice served had become justice serving, an endless feast of possibility. I locked the studio and walked to the farmhouse where Winter's Mercy hung in the hallway. The painting that started everything now watched over daily life, a reminder that kindness creates more than we can calculate. Justice had been served, but mercy had been chosen. And in that choice, everything beautiful began. 6 months after the trials ended, the farmhouse had found its new rhythm. The Hartley Julia Art Foundation operated from the converted barn, offering free classes to anyone who couldn't afford traditional art education. Children arrived after school, seniors gathered for morning sessions, and evenings brought adults seeking creative expression after long workdays. Mark supervised the construction of our second building, a proper gallery and classroom space. His crew, mostly people from his recovery program, worked with the dedication of those building their own redemption. Every nail hammered straight is a promise kept, he told them, and they understood. This morning brought special visitors. Emma's family had returned from Switzerland, her treatment complete and successful. She burst through the door like sunshine, immediately running to the supply cabinet she'd claimed as her own. "I taught 12 Swiss kids to paint," she announced, pulling out fresh canvases. "Now I need to teach everyone here what I learned there. Did you know mountains have different colors depending on hope levels?" Her mother followed, tears threatening her composure. "The doctors say she's officially in remission, full recovery expected. We owe everything to Emma's strength," I interrupted gently, "and her refusal to stop creating beauty even when facing darkness." Emma had already gathered younger students demonstrating alpine color theory, with the authority of someone who'd painted through chemotherapy. Her joy radiated, infecting everyone with the belief that art could indeed save lives. Mark arrived for the building inspection, clipboard in hand, but pride evident. "Foundation solid," he reported. "Weather-tight, built to last generations. Dad would approve." Dad would wonder why it took so long, I teased, but we both heard the love in it. As the inspector signed off on permits, Brittany appeared with a van full of donated supplies. "Estate sale in Gladwin," she explained, unloading professional easels and unused paint sets. "Widow said her husband bought them, planning to start painting someday. That day never came for him, but maybe for someone else." She'd changed, finding purpose in connecting unused resources with eager hands. Her real estate connections now served different goals, acquiring supplies and spaces for expanding arts programs rather than just commissions. Dr. Vance arrived for her weekly volunteer session, carrying art history books donated by colleagues who respected her knowledge despite her fall. "Today we study how Monet's cataracts changed his palette," she announced. "Sometimes our limitations create new ways of seeing." The students, unaware of her past, simply knew her as the lady who made dead artists feel alive through stories. She'd found her own redemption in teaching, without authentication's authority sharing knowledge for its own sake rather than market value. Detective Chen visited now simply Marcus's sister rather than our protector. She brought news from the wider world. Kozlov's teaching art classes in federal prison. His students are mostly financial criminals learning to create rather than steal. Guard says he's surprisingly good at explaining color theory through the lens of moral choices. "People change," I said, meaning it. "Some people. Others just reveal who they always were." She smiled. "Like you. The whole world tried to make you compromise, but you stayed exactly yourself." As afternoon classes began, I moved through the spaces, watching lives transform through creation. Mrs. Chen perfected her technique for painting water, each attempt bringing her closer to capturing memory's fluidity. Timothy, now headed to art school on scholarships the foundation had helped secure, mentored younger students with patience learned through grief. Sarah led the addiction recovery art group, her own journey qualifying her to guide others through expressing pain that words couldn't capture. Sometimes sobriety starts with picking up a brush instead of a bottle. She told newcomers, and they believed because she lived that truth. The mail brought unexpected correspondence. Museums worldwide reported on their Hartley paintings' impact. The Smithsonian's Winter's Mercy had become their most visited piece viewers, drawn to the story of kindness creating beauty. Educational programs built around each painting reached thousands, teaching gratitude through art appreciation. One letter stood out, handwritten on expensive stationery. Dear Ms. Walker, I am James Hartley's great-niece recently discovering our family connection. I followed your story how you protected Uncle James's legacy while refusing to profit from it. I'm writing because I've inherited something you should know about Uncle James's final journals. In them, he details not just the 13 paintings given to your father, but plans for an entire series he never completed, tentatively titled The Gratitude Variations. He wrote that if anyone could complete what he envisioned, it would be Samuel Walker's daughter. I'm flying to Philadelphia next week. Perhaps we could discuss Uncle James's unfinished Symphony of Thanks. Sincerely, Margaret Hartley Collins. My hands trembled. Hartley had planned more paintings, an entire series exploring gratitude's variations, the weight of potential pressed down but also lifted up. That evening, I gathered everyone for our monthly community dinner. The gallery space filled with tables, families bringing dishes, art covering every wall. These gatherings had become tradition-breaking bread among beauty we'd created together. Mark stood to speak, still uncomfortable with public attention but pushing through. A year ago, I nearly destroyed everything our father built. Today, we're building something he dreamed of, a place where art serves community, where beauty belongs to everyone. I'm grateful for second chances for a sister who showed mercy when justice would have been enough, and for all of you who prove daily that creation beats destruction. Applause filled the space, but more importantly, understanding. Everyone here had faced their own destructions: illness, addiction, poverty, loss, betrayal. Yet here they sat, choosing to create despite or because of their scars. Emma presented her latest painting, the farmhouse surrounded by alpine flowers that seemed to dance. "This is for the foundation," she announced, "to remember that good things grow from hard ground if you plant them with love." We hung it immediately, pride of place, near the entrance where everyone would see it. A child's vision of hope worth more than any authentication could certify. As dinner wound down and families prepared to leave, I stood where Dad's workshop once was, now transformed into the children's studio. Through windows, I could see the original farmhouse, Winter's Mercy, visible through the kitchen window. Full circle, yet spiraling outward. "You did it," Mark said, joining me. Dad's dream bigger than he imagined. We did it, all of us. Even Kozlov in his way, by showing what happens when you try to cage beauty. Think he understands now in his cell, teaching other criminals to paint. I think he's learning what Emma knows instinctively: creation is the opposite of greed. You can't hoard what you're busy giving away. People began leaving, calling goodbyes, promising to return tomorrow for classes. The foundation operated entirely on donations and volunteer time, yet never lacked resources. Beauty shared had indeed multiplied, just as Hartley promised. Before closing, I wrote a letter to Margaret Hartley Collins. Yes, I would love to discuss the unfinished series, not to complete it myself, but to inspire our students to attempt variations on gratitude. Each person here had their own Winter Mercy story, their own rescue worth 40 years of thanks. The last car pulled away near midnight. I walked through the buildings, checking locks, adjusting paintings, preparing for tomorrow's classes. This was my inheritance, not paintings worth millions, but the ability to help others paint their own worth. In Dad's old bedroom, now my office, I found a note slipped under the door. Miss Julia. Thank you for teaching me that brushes can be wands and paint can be magic spells. Now when my dad yells, I paint quiet flowers. When Mom cries, I paint strong trees. You saved my family with art class. Love, Destiny, age 7. I added it to the wall of student letters testimonies, more valuable than any critical acclaim. This was success, 7-year-olds discovering they could transform pain into beauty, that creation offered escape from destruction. My phone buzzed. Emma texting from bed, "Can't sleep, too excited about tomorrow's class on painting feelings. Do you think Hartley ever painted excitement? It would be yellow, but also purple, but also like lightning. But soft. See you tomorrow." I smiled, texting back. Hartley painted gratitude in every color. Tomorrow you'll teach us excitement's palette. Sleep well, young master. The farmhouse settled into night sounds, old wood, adjusting to temperature wind through trees that had sheltered generations, the distant hoot of the owl who'd claimed our barn. Peaceful sounds earned after so much noise. I thought about Dad's letter discovered in the final Hartley frame. Money corrupts, but art enlightens. Choose wisely, my children. We had chosen Mark and I after nearly choosing wrongly. And that choosing continued daily in every class, taught every supply, donated every child discovering they could create rather than just consume. The Hartley Julia Art Foundation wasn't a building or program. It was proof that kindness creates ripples across decades, that beauty survives every attempt to commodity it, that the true inheritance isn't objects, but the ability to generate joy for others. Tomorrow would bring new students fresh canvases, unexplored possibilities. Margaret Hartley Collins would share her uncle's vision for gratitude variations. Emma would teach excitement's colors. Mark would build spaces for beauty to flourish. Vance would make history live. Sarah would guide others through recovery's palette. And I would do what Dad always did, create space for kindness to compound. This was wealth beyond Kozlov's comprehension, a community of creators choosing beauty over greed, connection over collection, gratitude over gain. We were all Samuel Walker's children, now rescued from various winters, and spending our lives saying thank you in every medium available. The paintings had scattered like seeds, each growing new gardens where they landed. But the original garden remained here, tended by those who understood that true inheritance isn't what you receive, but what you choose to give. As I climbed the stairs to bed, I paused at Winter's Mercy. The painting seemed to glow with its own light, that amber warmth at the center of the storm, still promising rescue to anyone willing to see it. "Thank you, Dad," I whispered, "for saving more than just one man in the snow, for showing us that kindness is the only wealth worth inheriting." The farmhouse held its silence, but I felt his answer in every board and beam. Keep creating. Keep teaching. Keep choosing beauty over everything else. The inheritance was never the paintings. It was the ability to help others paint their own worth into existence. Tomorrow's blank canvases waited. Tonight's gratitude overflowed. And somewhere between memory and hope, the true inheritance continued growing, one brushstroke of kindness at a time. Dear friend, have you ever experienced a moment when someone's kindness changed your life? When did you choose forgiveness over revenge, creation over destruction? Share your story in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more tales of human triumph. Share this with someone who needs reminding that beauty survives always. Thank you for joining our creative community. May your own Winter's Mercy lead to 40 years of gratitude, painted in whatever colors bring you joy. Until we meet again in the next story, keep creating, keep choosing kindness, and remember, you are the artist of your own life's canvas. Paint it well.